Entering the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Finally time to jump into this. The top 170-ish rankings. We'll talk about like the top 200 at some point, but we're going to be talking about the top 100 overall for 2019 fantasy football seasons today. If you want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, smash the like button for the episode. Leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section and tell me your overall top 10 for PPR scoring. We're talking PPR here, people. So that's how you get into the draw for 20 DK bucks. Another way to do that, give a 5-star review to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever it may be. Leave your DraftKings handle, something nice about the show. Or if you see any football post up on my Instagram, you follow me at the PME, you heart one of them photos, and leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. Boom! 3 ways to get into the draws for 20 DK dollars. Winners announced every single Monday on the Pat Mayo Experience. Also, if you want to find the entire list of my overall rankings, along with positional rankings, which are separated into tiers, you can find that at dkplaybook.com. And if you check out the description of this video or the comment section of the video in the audio podcast, wherever you may find it, you can find all of the previous fantasy football shows that have come before it. Garion Thorne is in studio with me.
Hello.
It's been a long time coming.
It has.
This is a month later than we usually do it.
It is good to be back. I am known, I guess, as a poor man's Cam Stewart at this point.
Is that what people are calling you?
The fat Chris Meany, as I like to call myself.
The fat Chris Meany?
The fat Chris Meany.
Wow!
2 times the person.
When Meany was here, we had a fly-in studio, and I had to rate it live on air.
I saw that.
That was not great.
I mean, that must have really been scary for you.
It was terrifying.
Now that you have so much to lose, especially.
I know.
I mean, just changes your whole perspective on things.
So you were doing rankings for like the first time in 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
You see Meany came top 3 in Fantasy Pros?
I did see that.
Congrats to Meany. Follow at Chris Meany.
Gotta do
We'll
it.
get him back in here, too.
Someone on Twitter yesterday was like, hey, Chris Meany, how are you so good at all these sports? It's a question I ask myself quite a bit.
It's sort of the opposite of me. It's like, Pat, how are you so bad at all these sports, despite the fact that you seem to put time into researching? It's like, I don't know. I'm just bad at it. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
So you can use my rankings to figure out like who not to draft. And we'll be talking through it, but it won't be just you and I. Because when we do the overall rankings breakdown, we need a third member in the studio. And that third member is Tim Undergust.
Tim Undergust.
Not my name.
Heard it was.
No, you didn't.
I did, though. I swear to God I heard it somewhere.
Sounds familiar.
I may have heard it on the show or on the internet is a place where I may have heard it in the past. So initial thoughts on the overall rankings here, Tim. You feel like Le'Veon Bell is too low, don't you? Before we get into the actual rankings.
My first thought was, where are all the Seattle tight ends since there was such a thing?
Oh, God.
We're going back to
Has
this
it been
already?
that long since I've been on the show? Jeez. We'll have Seattle takes. I'm sure we'll get there, Tim.
Are you big?
Just wanted to make some self-referential humor. I don't know. I mean, the first take was there were significantly fewer receivers in the top 20 than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the process behind this. And like, I basically took my tiers from each of the positions and kind of lumped them all together. And if anyone's watching the video version, you'll see the ADPs next to it. There's a few ADPs that are out of whack. The reason we waited so long to do this, Garion's a busy man. He's a big shot.
Big time.
Can't get him in studio. And we didn't want to get him by the phone. That's for Tim only. And I wanted to wait for the Tyreek Hill news, to be perfectly honest, because that affects so much up and down the board, whether it be the secondary receivers, whether it be Kelsey, whether it be Patrick Mahomes, whether it be him himself.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, because I found when I first did my ranks, we were at the stage of the Tyreek Hill situation where it seemed like he was still going to be suspended,
Like
but was only going to
games or
get 4
so.
games. And my thought on it at the time was I still had him as my wide receiver 13 if he was going to miss 4 games, because I don't know how you felt, and maybe this does speak to the fact there aren't as many wide receivers inside the top 20. I feel like when you get past that group of like Adam Thielen, AJ Green, Julian Edelman, that sort of tier of receiver, and they may not be in that exact order.
They actually almost are in that exact order.
Almost in that exact order, but I had a real hard time finding like a high-end wide receiver 2 that I liked. I feel like there's about 12 to 14 back-end wide receiver 2s who just have to end up being wide receiver 14, 15, 16, 17. So for me, it was, even if Tyreek Hill's going to miss 4 games, I know he has the potential to be such a top-flight, top-5 guy. I'm willing to take him ahead of some of these back-end wide receiver 2s who might have a elevated ADP just sort of out of positional scarcity.
And what you're talking about the top end of wide receiver 2 and that drop off that comes after is kind of how I feel at running back, but not just at running back too, like the second tier of running back.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Once you get past the first 4 guys, like you can make a pretty legit argument for 7 guys to be number 5.
Yeah.
Especially with this, we don't know the Melvin Gordon news at this point, whether he's going to hold out or not. I don't think that he's going to, but
yeah. But
It-
look,
it's
it's on the
factored-
table. It's on the
Lessons
table.
have to be learned from last year. I'm sorry.
Well,
Lessons have to be learned from last year. You can't. It would be malpractice to assume someone's not going to sit out.
we also have Los
Angeles
Angeles Chargers insider Jeff Feinberg to give us hot. Like I'm sure he's following this every day.
Jackson too. Like the Chargers have done this in the past. They've just shelved somebody who won't play ball. So
Yeah.
you
Are they
have-
cheap?
oh, they're
Are they cheap?
advance.
I don't know if
You
I ever
have to
heard the
advance.
Chargers are cheap.
You have to advance as if he's not playing for at least the first 10 weeks until you hear otherwise. I think any other move is
I
malpractice.
I don't think we're at that stage yet because we're not even into
Yeah,
August.
well,
Like
those of us who drafted Bell first overall have been burnt, and that's the only way we're going to look at it.
well, I mean, that is your fault for drafting Bell first overall. Then you cursed him into not.
Everyone was saying to do so.
Yeah,
It's my
and then you did it, and then he sat out.
I don't know if everyone was. That was a pretty. We go into a lot of seasons with definitive number 1 picks. I would say the board was pretty split on Gurley. Bell
Yeah.
last
So anyway,
season.
I'm factoring in just if you're drafting today, there is a risk element to Melvin Gordon. So
sure,
he's
100%.
I initially had him as my number 5 overall running back, but circumstances have changed.
You have to factor
And
that in.
if he reports week 1, because he's not in the same situation as Le'Veon Bell does. He doesn't accrue a year. Like he'd have to come back and play anyway next year. He can't just become a free agent.
Yeah.
So he's kind of screwing himself here.
Yeah, I like you think this probably gets resolved in a different fashion than the Le'Veon Bell situation because it is a different situation. But you're right. You can't have him as a top 7 player. You can't have him as a top 5 running back with this hanging over his head because again, the separation between Melvin Gordon and Dalvin Cook, David Johnson, Nick Chubb, like there's arguments to make. James Conner, who is
James Conner,
becoming a more contentious name.
which we'll get into Conner here in a second once we hit the rankings, but
it's tough.
Bell is in
It's
that
tough.
mix.
Like sometimes I feel like if I were given the option or if I'm playing in one of those leagues where, you do something weird to figure out draft slot and you get to pick your preference for where you
Pick
for where
4
you
is the
select.
best pick.
Exactly. Where sometimes I would say like, I like picking 10th, you can go receiver, you can get, maybe one of those second tier running backs. Yeah. This year, I'm taking that 4th pick. And if I can't get the 4th pick, I'm making sure I pick inside the top 4.
Just so you get one of those 4
You gotta
guys.
get
All
one of
right,
those
so
guys.
let's get into the rankings then. The top 10. I got Zeke at number 1 right now.
I agree with
this
you.
is assuming that he's not going to be like suspended or anything like
Seems
that.
like that is the case.
Saquon at 2, Christian McCaffrey at 3, Alvin Kamara at 4. I think those are a very definitive top 4. We'll see what Tim has to say about this. But then we have Hopkins and Adams at 5 and 6. Then I go Michael Thomas and Julio at 7 and 8. Kelsey at number 9. Then there's just a big run of running backs. Chubb at 10, Connor, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook. And that is the tier that I struggled the most with. I don't know who to make number 5 at running back. Right now, I just look at that Browns offense, and I want a piece of it. And I feel like the running back might be the best part. But then we get into a situation where Kareem Hunt comes back, and all of a sudden Nick Chubb's no good anymore.
So I have 2 very different schools of thought on this, and one of them is one that you've kind of imparted, and I fully agree with, which is the NFL season changes so quickly and so drastically from even August to September, let alone September to mid-November when Hunt is going to come back. That especially if you're someone who watches the Pat Mayo experience and gets on those waiver wire running backs early in the season, like there's a very good chance if you draft Chubb at this position and he returns top 6, top 8 running back value for the first 8 weeks.
Yeah, he's
of
not
his
going
season.
anywhere. The pick, I feel like the pick is if you take him at 10th overall, like the number 10 pick, and he has not lived up to being the number 10 pick by the time week 10 comes around, then he's getting replaced. But if he does live up to it, then they're going to keep him as the starter.
I think he'll stay as the starter either way. I just think that regardless of how he performs, they're going to mix Kareem Hunt in. I think his role will be impacted even if he's the best running back in football going into that week. But I'm just saying, so much will have changed in the running back landscape. There's a very good chance you've picked someone up who could be a Chubb replacement at that point. Like, there's an argument to be made that you take Chubb now knowing what his workload is going to be for the foreseeable immediate future because no one knows what week 10 is going to look like in the NFL. At the same time, I look at Chubb versus, let's just say, David Johnson, because Johnson's someone who I think a lot of people kind of have pigeonholed into that 5 spot. Maybe just out of like, I don't know what to do. I know David Johnson has potential. Let's put him here. if you go back to week 7, which is pretty much when Chubb took over that lead back role in the Browns offense, from week 7 on, Chubb and Johnson each played 11 games. Chubb actually only outscored David Johnson by 0.4 of a fantasy point. And David Johnson was playing for arguably the worst offense in NFL history.
Well, the David Johnson situation is a bit different too, though, because last year he was relied upon to basically do everything, even in a bad offense. So
Sure.
Presumably they're going to score more with Cliff Kingsbury this year, but will David Johnson get as much usage as he did last year?
I think so, because I think
that's
it's
my worry about it.
It's a sliding scale, though. I mean, you look at a guy who, for Chubb, again, to make the direct comparison, Chubb only played more than 70% of his team's snaps twice. David Johnson didn't play 70% of the Cardinals' snaps twice. Like, he is a bell cow back in a league where we're not really getting any more bell cow backs. But even if that usage and snap rate goes from I think he finished the season at 79%. Let's say that goes down to even 65%. I think under Kingsbury, you're going to see a team that isn't dead last, and at one point was almost about to set the NFL record for fewest plays on average per game.
Yeah, they could be near the top.
If they go
year.
from 53 plays even to just 60, 61, 62, that usage loss now it really doesn't matter. It's a washout because there's just more plays anyway.
All right, so Tim, what do you think about this second tier of running back? Unless you guys have supreme arguments with the guys at the very top.
No, not really. I would have McCaffrey first. I think he's the best fantasy player in PPR. And I actually think I don't think it's all. Anyway, whatever.
Were you going to say you don't think it's all that close?
No, I just think it is pretty. I think you have all your work cut out for you not having him first. That's the way he's performed with that offense.
I
but
agree
anyway,
with you
whatever.
on Zeke.
I mean,
you say there's a top 4, whatever. I'm not going to fight you too much on it, whatever. That is a debate that really doesn't matter. The top 4 guys are the top 4 guys. I probably would go McCaffrey, Kamara, Elliott, Barkley, but whatever, you have them in a different order. That doesn't matter.
Interesting.
Just because, listen, Kamara is now the only back in that New Orleans offense.
That's not true.
That's an overstated fact.
Because
only back that matters.
Latavius Murray is going to have a role. Latavius Murray is a draftable running back that you can play as a flex.
He could very easily have Mark Ingram's role.
And he's better than Mark
really
Ingram,
not all
so
that
that
different.
hurts.
One thing to think about.
That's setting the bar too low. He's better than anyone is better than Mark Ingram.
Fair.
That's not saying anything.
Look, and I realize it's funny in a way that this is the person that they chose to not necessarily replace Mark Ingram in their offense, but they did bring in Jared Cook, which is another just quality player, one of the best. But my thing is, it's just funny. I only bring this up because we actually have them in the exact same order.
You and I do?
Yeah.
Oh, see, very few people have Elliott at number 1. Most people have Barkley.
Here's my thing with Elliott. It's just
Elliott.
Last season,
Yeah.
I went through it because it mystified me. There's been 129 running backs since the merger to rush for at least 1,400 yards.
Do we need to say since the merger? What was the merger like?
1970.
Year 3 of the NFL?
I don't know. Just saying. Just for semantics. That's the timeline.
The language.
That's the timeline. Either way, 129 times. Only 15 of those 129 had 6 touchdowns or fewer. Normalization is going to hit here. Sure, the Dak thing is a little scary, but he's not Cam. He's not 3 years ago Cam.
And
he's just going to score more touchdowns.
I brought this up a whole bunch of times too. You think opposing defenses are going to look at it and be like, maybe Dak is going to run the ball here. Maybe. It just seemed like every team was very poorly equipped to just even think that was a possibility last season. And having Dak with the ability to do that should actually help out Elliott.
Yeah, you'd think so.
If teams start to scheme for that. The one thing that I was so down on Elliott, I think I had him number 6 last year at running back. But the whole case was he just doesn't catch any passes.
Yeah.
But now he does. Do we expect any regression that way with the new offensive coordinator?
I don't necessarily think so. I think he proved himself to be solid in that regard. I'm going to say it's one of the few times I can remember in recent fantasy football history that an offensive coordinator told us something, and it was legitimately true. He went from, I think it was 38 targets to 95. Maybe it drops off a little bit, but I still think he's going to be highly involved in that offense.
Yeah, I just don't think that the discrepancy between whatever he loses in volume of pass equity, if he loses 15 targets, if you can pencil him in for double-digit touchdowns, he more than makes up for that anyway.
And he's going to lead the league in touches.
Tim,
it's just going to happen.
So you would have Elliott at 3 or 4 then?
I would have Elliott at 3, Barkley at 4, Kamara at 2, and McCaffrey 1. Just saying, if I had the first pick, I'd take McCaffrey. That's the player I like the best in fantasy. I think in PPR, I just think he's the most valuable player, so I'm taking him.
I think that we may have saw his bad.
He won me bucks last year too.
Yeah, he was
he was
great.
engine that ran my team last year when I won in DraftKings. I love McCaffrey.
Yeah, I listen. McCaffrey's great. I'm at number 3. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
say
it's
disparaging word. I just
marginal
think,
differences.
I think that he may have hit his ceiling last year,
Yeah.
and then that would say he doesn't need to hit his ceiling again to be the number 3 overall fantasy player by any means. He could lose 10, 15% off what he did last year and still be as good. I just think that the ceiling is higher for Barkley and the ceiling is higher for Elliott.
I agree.
And a lot of it has to do with the offense in Carolina looks like it could be getting a little bit better. They have like capable receiving options now. And Cam is just always a threat to steal your touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like more like where Dak did that to Zeke last year. I think that projecting it forward, I would put more blind faith behind Cam scoring more rushing touchdowns than Dak near the goal line.
I'm very high on Cam this year.
Me too.
So Cam is this year's Andrew Luck, which is fun.
Yeah, but he hurt his arm. He can't throw anymore.
Yeah, I know. He's broken.
So after that top 4, I mean, I guess we can briefly talk about Barkley and Kamara. Like, I think you can make a decent case for Kamara to be the number 1 player. That if Murray isn't used in the Mark Ingram role,
Sure.
which I definitely do think he is. That's why I have Kamara at number 4.
Yeah.
But remember what Kamara did for the first 4 weeks last year?
Oh,
he
it was insane.
He was unstoppable.
It was crazy. The one point I was going to make, and I got a little sidetracked, was just the Saints actually, in terms of tight end usage in the red zone, were one of the lowest volume teams in the entire NFL last season. I think they were the lowest in the NFC at like 11% of their team targets went to tight ends. Something like 35% went to running backs. I don't necessarily think when they come out and say, "Oh, we see Jared Cook in that Jimmy Graham role," that's laughably stupid. But they're going to use Jared Cook in the red zone. They're going to try a little bit. You had a situation last season where Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas were both top 5 in red zone targets. I just don't know if that can happen again. And it's just little things like that.
Oh, who's the big bulky white fullback they have this year? They have Kuhn.
It's not
still?
Zach Line anymore.
Zach Line. Did they re-sign like Kuhn or something like that? Because that guy will end up like 5
Sure,
touchdowns.
yeah, he'll have 5. Random tight end number 4 who they drafted out of Hofstra.
Don't forget about Taysom Hill.
I like Taysom Hill.
I like Taysom Hill too.
So does Sean Payton.
Yeah, like he's effective when they put him in here.
What Pat White was supposed to be.
Oh, Pat White. Wildcat.
It's what he's supposed to be. He's like a utility player that actually is very good and suited for his role.
I mean, if Pat White hadn't almost died, maybe he would have been an effective NFL player. I don't know.
He got very crushed. He ended up playing for the Argonauts in the CFL.
He did.
Wildcat. Wild Pat.
That was what the package was
I
called.
know. So those are the top 4 guys. At number 5, Hopkins, Adams, Thomas, Jones. I initially had Kelsey at number 7, but then the Hill news maybe bump him down a little bit. And I've been over this Kelsey thing a few times, that I think that he is by far and away the best tight end. And without Hill, he would have saw more coverage, presumably. His efficiency would have went down, but the volume would have went up. I still think that he's going to be the best tight end by far. Tim, would you have a problem drafting Travis Kelsey at number 9?
No, I wouldn't have a trouble drafting him at number 5, to be frank with you.
Really?
He's fine. He's not the pick I would make there. But, like, put it this way. I like Hopkins better. I definitely like Kelsey better than Adams. I think Adams is way overranked, to be perfectly frank. There's several receivers on this list I like better than Adams.
Is this because... No, hold on a second. Is this only because that year you drafted Devontae Adams in, like, the second round, he was absolutely garbage?
No, I do not allow my own personal grievances.
Well, you just said you were going to rank Christian McCaffrey number 1 because he was so great for you last year.
That's actually one of my favorite moments,
though. Those are positive experiences, not grievances. I'm not bringing my axes to grind here.
Tim didn't keep Devontae Adams that season. I came into the league, got to pick up people's keepers they didn't want to keep, and I've had Devontae Adams the last 3 years. It's worked out very well.
I think Adams is a second-round player who's being ranked in the first round, and I think it's actually kind of dumb.
Look, I have Julio ahead of him. I actually have Julio as wide receiver too, but for me, the separation between he and Adams, they're almost the antithesis of each other, which makes them such interesting kind of comparables.
One
because
is good and what isn't?
No. One is seemingly a lock to score double-digit touchdowns and lead the league in red zone targets again, while there's still this weird stigma on Julio that he doesn't score touchdowns. But at the same time...
Do you worry anything about the Atlanta offense being year 1 with a new offensive coordinator? And the last 2 times we've seen this with Matt Ryan, he's been kind of trash.
That's not actually something I've thought about.
What they're getting rid of makes me feel good about the Falcons.
What's that?
What the Falcons are getting away from makes me feel good about the Falcons. Getting away from the offense that has been run the last 2 seasons. I actually think if it can't be worse, it can only be better.
Well, I mean,
They had a top 5 offense.
Matt Ryan last season was top 5 in dropbacks, attempts,
Talking about
passing
their play
touchdown,
call.
passing yards. But still, as it directly correlates to Julio Jones, that's everything. If you guarantee me he'll be top 5 in those categories again, I would take that 100 times out of 100 if I'm a Julio Jones drafter. So that's all that really matters to me.
Well, the other big thing with the Atlanta offense too is that, presumably their entire defense won't be injured in week 1 for the entire season.
You would hope so.
And it's a little bit better than it was, so you don't have to pass 45 times a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you can attempt to establish the run just a little bit. Not that I'm big on running the ball, but I think that's something that NFL teams will do once they're ahead in games. They just didn't play from ahead at all last year.
Never. Still though, I mean, I think Julio led the league in air yards by like 300 yards. I just think the sustainability and projectability of receiving yards is so much easier than projecting receiving touchdowns.
I agree, but there's something with that Packers offense where it funnels through Devontae Adams.
Sure.
And they're like, Aaron Jones is going to take over, and Aaron Jones is going to be fantastic. Maybe, but you know what's going to be better? Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
It's true.
And we can't even decide who the number 2 in Green Bay is. Is it
Yeah.
Valdez
Maybe
Scantling?
Green Bay's not going to be that good this year. Maybe their offense is not going to be that good this year.
It wasn't
Maybe
that,
that's why.
It wasn't that good last year, and Adams was the
No,
number 2 wide.
maybe
And
maybe worse
yeah,
this year.
it
I don't know
wasn't.
that that's a good team.
It
I don't
wasn't.
know that the team can even win half its games, and I don't think there's a lot of fantasy potential there, to be frank.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, they've been a fantasy viable situation for like
I know they
7
have, but
years.
Nothing goes on forever. I'm
Oh,
actually
is
quite
Green
down
Bay your
on-
new New England?
I'm quite down on Rodgers this year. I'm quite down on Green Bay in general this year. I think there's, I don't know. I think there's a really strong chance they could finish 4th in their division. I don't like them this year at all.
I think if they finish 4th in their division, that actually might be better for Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams' fantasy numbers. That just means they're down and chucking the entire time.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, their offense wasn't great last year, and Adams was amazing.
Yeah, look, I'm still 100% in on Devontae Adams. The separation for me between he and Julio is minimal. I have him at 2 and 3, but I don't know.
Do you have any worries about Hopkins?
No.
Like if let's say Cutie and Fuller end up playing 16 games, which seems impossible. But let's
That
say they
will
do.
never happen. What if the sun rises in the west? It's just as useful a question. It's not going to happen.
Sorry. So you sound pretty triggered over there, Tim.
Well, just like that's why Hopkins is by far the number 1 receiver, and there's a gap between him and everybody else.
See,
He's crazy, and he's the only receiver that makes that whole offense run.
See,
I
think
he's
that
great.
Adams and Hopkins are actually quite close here.
Okay.
And you could I think Sealy has Adams at number 1 at receiver, but I think they're pretty interchangeable. Depends on who you like better. And I think that Thomas and Julio are a bit closer together, and there's like a gap between Adams and Michael Thomas.
Okay.
That's the way that I see it. But I still have them back to back to back to back in the rankings. Then Kelsey.
Yeah.
Tim, if it was you and Travis Kelsey only had wide receiver eligibility, let's say, where would he rank for you? How many wide receivers would you take over Travis Kelsey?
Let's take a look. Where would I stop? I would take Beckham. I would take him over Hill, I suppose.
Would you take him over Antonio Brown or Juju?
No, I see. I would have both those guys rated ahead of Hill, and I actually think you have Juju way too low. So I wouldn't. But then you look later on, like Damian Williams.
I'm just talking about wide receivers.
I was saying, how high would you have Juju? Like really, in the way these rankings are kind of split up, you're basically going to have him at 16 ahead of Odell? Like how high would you have him?
Well, no, I guess the case would be for Juju that you tack him onto the back and you make him number 9. Like I have Juju at number 19. You can make him number 9 because that's where that first tier of wide receivers stops.
I guess that's more what I was asking.
If you bump him up a tier, then he goes from 19 to 9 very quickly.
Would Tim have Juju ahead of Odell is essentially what I'm asking. Because I would not.
I would have it parallel with Beckham, maybe slightly.
Well, you
ahead.
can't draft 2 players at the same time, Tim.
Okay, you know what? I will take Juju. I think he's on a better offense. I'll take Juju.
Do you think the Steelers' offense is better than the Browns' offense?
Better pieces, better quarterback.
I don't know if they have better
definite.
pieces, but
now I'll say this because there's been a lot of people talking about the emergence of like Jalen Samuels, and now
I'm not buying that.
Neither am I. And the fact that the
like
Steelers have they have 3 running backs. You know, they're down Antonio Brown. They might try to focus on the running game more this season. If there's anything we've learned time and time again from the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's that they are a monolith. They do not change the way they approach the game. And if it's really to be believed that Ben Roethlisberger is pulling the strings of this team, which he probably is at this point, if there's anything that Ben would want to do, it's go out and pass 68% of the time, just like he did last season, to prove to people that he does not need Antonio Brown and take down that coveted Pittsburgh Steelers team MVP award that he seems to care about so much. So, like, any concerns we have about Pittsburgh not passing as much this season, I have no concerns about that, partly because they could just be bad. Maybe not like super bad, but they could finish like 7-9 and be trailing in a lot of games. Like,
You think they're going to be the McLovin of the NFL?
the McLovin of the NFL.
That's tough. So Kelsey at 9, if he's wide receiver like 7, let's say,
Yeah.
if he's a wide receiver like Tim has pointed out, and that's around where I would have him too. I think that's worth a round
Yeah,
versus those other receivers, just because he plays tight end.
sure. I mean, tight end falls off again, just like it does every season.
And I think that Kelsey is a step above Kittle and Ertz. I really do.
I agree.
Because I think Kittle may have just had his best season last year.
Do we think this is like the start of the end for Kittle? Like, do you think that we see the emergence of just other pieces? I can't remember their backup tight end's name.
No,
right now for the life of me.
I don't think that it's like the end of Kittle by any means. It's just he was like the only guy left standing last year.
Sorry, I was talking about Ertz.
Oh,
My
Ertz.
apologies. Like, do we think that Ertz is like they're going to start phasing him out?
No. Oh, you're thinking of Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, or is Goddard going to start to be more involved in this offense, or is it going to take an injury?
I think that those things don't need to be mutually exclusive. I think that Ertz can stay the same and Goddard can have a bigger role. It seemed like he overachieved in the touchdown department last year.
Yeah.
Like he's better in PPR than he's going to be in standard. If he regresses back in terms of touchdowns, he has like half the amount of touchdowns, which isn't inconceivable, then he's not on that tier. He's on the second tier. Well behind Kelsey.
Yeah.
Or
And
Kleiss, as our dyslexic friend says.
The thing with Kittle too is there was so many targets, there was so many yards, and he's for me the number 2 or number 3 guy. You could debate the order of that because I do think that is its own tier.
I have him
them.
at number 2 at tight end.
But there's a case to be made that his yards after catch numbers will also regress. Like he had, I believe, 2 80+ yard touchdowns that came off of 5-yard like in routes. Like that stuff's not going to happen again. He's probably going to see his yardage totals regress, especially if you get a full season of any single wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. Like I just think injury luck will have to normalize with them at some point. So yeah, I think there's regression cases to be made for both those guys. So that would just vault Kelsey into his own tier.
Yeah, and that's the way that I currently have ranked. I have Kittle and Ertz at number 31 and number 32. Which one would you have higher, Tim? The Ertz squirts or Kittle me Timbers?
I forgot about that.
How did you forget about that?
It's been months. I would prefer Kittle's. I think he's a better player.
Yeah, so I think we all agree on that.
Sure.
So to switch back up to the top after Kelsey, Chubb at number 10, then Connor, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Mixon, Dalvin Cook. I just threw all those receivers into a pile and
Running backs, yeah.
Yeah, running backs into a pile, and basically hit random order generator, and this is the way that it came out. I initially had Melvin Gordon at the very top of this tier. For a while, I had Mixon at the top of the tier, but now he's lost 2 offensive linemen so far. That's not great.
That's tough.
That's a tough beat for him. Dalvin Cook has the injury history. James Conner has all of this stuff swirling around him. Jalen Samuel, Schnell, might come in and steal his work on the goal line. But, Pittsburgh doesn't do that.
No.
Unless, like you said, there's a fundamental shift in how Pittsburgh runs its offense. James Conner is going to play 85% of the snaps, and unless he gets hurt, he's going to be really good like he was last year.
Yeah, people are focusing on the fact that Samuels came on a little late, but
Because Conner was
got
hurt.
hurt. Exactly. Like, something has to happen. And we had this in... This was the entirety of the discussion last season when we knew Bell was going to hold out was, will they use Connor the same way? Yes, this is what they do. So I'm not going to take my belief out of that. Like I have David Johnson ahead of James Conner, and that's the only other running back. I have Connor as my number 6 running back.
So Tim, who do you like the best out of this tier? And you can't say Le'Veon Bell.
All right. Well, since I have to give a dishonest answer, then the answer I will give is James Conner.
So you like Connor more than David Johnson too. David Johnson just is the biggest conundrum for me. Like in Kingsbury's offense in college, they don't run quite as much, but the running lanes are much wider, so you can be far more efficient on the ground. They run 2 running back sets a lot, and the A-dot on first down for the quarterbacks in that offense, you think like air raid, they're bombing it every single time. It's actually exceptionally low because they throw to running backs a lot on first down. So for PPR purposes, that could vault David Johnson into a new tier. But if Chase Edmonds is on the field all the time too, he could start to take away from that, almost
Yeah.
like Cohen and Howard last year, in the way that Cohen and Montgomery will be deployed this year.
Yeah, but I think the difference in that situation, like, look, I understand what you're saying, and
But
that's,
we have to
that's a fear.
nitpick between all these
Sure,
guys.
no, you do, but unlike Cohen and Howard can't catch. Like, David Johnson is still, I mean, I didn't see it at all last season because it was hidden from us, but I would believe that David Johnson is still one of the most elite pass-catching running backs we have in this game. Like, it's just something we've seen in the not-too-distant past. Again, I think that when you look at his level of production last season, granted, when I say he was a top 25 running back 12 times, we all understand that he came in as like running back 18, running back 17. Like, it wasn't amazing production, but this is in standard formats too. So you're taking away one of David Johnson's greatest strengths.
Yeah, and let's not talk about standard formats.
But I'm just saying,
those are
but just even in standard, he had 12 top 25 running back finishes, which was as many as James Conner and Melvin Gordon. Like, I don't think he was as bad as people want to make it out that he was last season. He's still such a high floor guy. I think Kingsbury and his past give him this massive ceiling. And again, we're talking about a team that was dead last in plays per game, dead last in points per game, dead last in red zone scoring possessions per game. Like, every single conceivable category you could have and correlate to the importance of running backs, they were the worst in. And I just don't think it's going to happen again. Like, they even went out and retooled the offensive line a little bit. They brought in Sweezy. They traded for Marcus Gilbert. They spent a high draft pick on a tackle. Like, I just think they're going to get better.
Okay,
and
Tim,
I think that works out for David Johnson.
Tim, let me pose this to you. What if we play the Kyler Murray game here that we just saw?
Football or
Yeah.
baseball?
Both. We play a bit of both. We create our new game.
Sure.
It'd be like basketball, but in a different way.
Sure.
But if Murray is really good, that means he's running a bunch. And presumably those, you could say those are dropbacks, but there could be a lot of designed runs for him as well. That could take away from David Johnson. If we have a Dak situation where he starts calling his own number near the goal
He's
line.
so little.
Hey, some of the best running backs of all time were really little near the goal line. Everyone wants to think like Brandon Jacobs is a really good goal line back. In fact, he was terrible.
Can't
like-
even get between the guards.
Yeah, and Tomlinson was the best because he would just run into a pile and pop out the other
true.
end somehow. But if, let's say, Murray ends up with 6 rushing touchdowns, that's a lot. But let's just say that's what it is. That's directly coming from David Johnson.
Sure. And if they don't.
Or how about this? Tim, let me pose this to you. What if Kyler Murray sucks?
Well,
Well, if that's the case, it's bad news. It's bad news for David Johnson. It's bad news for everyone on that offense, I guess.
but if he sucks, can it get worse? Could it be worse than the suck of last season? I don't even think he could suck that much.
Be as bad.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad.
I think it could be worse because let's say Kyler Murray is really, really terrible. That means he's not completing any passes. He's basically just running around. He could be really terrible and have, I wouldn't want to say the Josh Allen season from the final few weeks, but he could just be running 18 times a game, and then it's good for no one.
I don't think I worry about him not having some level of acumen as an actual. I don't think he's Lamar Jackson by any means. Right?
I don't think he is either.
And I think he's a lot more accurate than Josh Allen.
But
too.
it seems to me like the Cole Kyler Murray discussion, it feels like there's no middle ground with him. Either he's going to be really good or really bad,
fair.
It seems.
Fair. But again, I would stand by my point that I don't think, even in the worst case Kyler Murray scenario, I don't think it can be as bad a fantasy environment as it was last season. I just don't think you can recreate that level of suck. It was so bad. I think they were only completing 12 and a half passes per game anyway. If you can't clear that bar, just fold the franchise at that point, and David Johnson doesn't get any fantasy points.
How do you feel about Josh Rosen in Miami now?
I was for that trade. I'm still for that trade.
How long do you think you're going to be for that trade into the season? How many weeks?
I think I'm okay with it either way. I mean,
tank out, get the first pick?
Whatever. I just think if you can trade a back-end second-round pick that you even traded in that same draft to get a third-round pick, the amount of draft capital you gave up for someone who was the 10th overall pick last season, I'm fine with it. I just think it's okay. Now, whether or not they actually let him play games, that's a little bit of a different story. You have to give him the chance this season to audition because you're going to have a chance to draft a quarterback very high in next year's draft.
Also, what would be the point of trading for him if you weren't going to play him?
Well, Fitzmagic's going to start game 1 because that's what Fitzmagic does, and he's going to win 3 games in September because that's what he does too. So we'll see how it goes.
Tim, are you big on the Dolphins for the 20th consecutive year?
I wouldn't say I'm big on them. No, I think I agree with everything Garion said there. I just don't think they have the horses to compete with a couple of much more talented teams in the division. That's all.
I thought he was going to specifically say the Jets.
Yeah, he already said the Jets are going to win the division.
Well, I knew that.
And
yeah.
are fringe or favorites for the Super Bowl. One of the two. I forget what he said.
Okay.
It changes day to day depending on
I said fringe.
depending on like the headline that he reads on Twitter.
Sure.
They're either fringe Super Bowl contenders or the favorite to win the Super Bowl. So tell us about Le'Veon Bell, Tim. What do you see his role being? Now, if people don't know, Cust is a New York Jets insider along the same lines as Postmaster Ted is.
Stop calling him that.
He's a government official. It's disrespectful to
I mean, look, I think the case for Bell is rather simple. He's the queen on the chessboard. He didn't play last year, so his body didn't get beat up. When we saw him in Pittsburgh, he was year in, year out the best or second best running back in football and in fantasy football. He has a quarterback who will be targeting him a lot. He had 85 catches 2 years ago. I think there's a better chance that he has 100 than he has 70. Put it that way. I think 85 is about the number, maybe slightly above 85. I think he's going to run crazy, bringing Assembly in, who he's a year removed from being an all-pro offensive lineman. I think that helps big time. The Jets have really good receivers, so the secondary has to respect what is going on there in the secondary with the receivers, and as such. And Sam has got one of the best arms and is a burgeoning talent, and that helps. So he's not one of the top 4 backs. No one would be silly enough to make that case. But of this second tier of backs, I think given the circumstance and the talent, it to me is to mix sports metaphors, a slam dunk to put him as the number 6 running back overall.
A slam dunk with 2 hands to make sure it goes in. So here are my 2 cases against Bell. One, and I know it's
Adam
Gase.
Gase.
Yeah, Adam Gase is number 1. You have a lot of Adam Gase experience and how he uses running backs.
I can talk about that.
That's always a lot of fun. He already doesn't want Le'Veon Bell, so that's not a good start.
Which is a good sign, because don't worry, that actually doesn't mean anything, because he didn't want Kenyon Drake to be the lead back, but Kenyon Drake carried the. Oh no, wait, no, he didn't. But it's okay because he didn't like Jay Ajayi either. But Jay Ajayi actually ran a lot. No, wait, he traded him. Man, it seems like when he doesn't like a running back, that actually has some bearing on how he uses them.
So there's that part of it too. And I know it's a brand new offense that's coming in, but last season, Darnold did not check down.
No.
I mean, the one really good thing about Darnold, I don't like saying nice things about Safe Space Sam, unless he's getting triggered too much, which he does. He needs a sympathy peacock with him on the sidelines at all times. It squeaks at him in his earpiece.
I won't even listen to this outrageous slander. Make your point or move on.
No, I'm going to continue. It's the Pat Mayo experience.
What are you going to... What is your option to not listen to this slander?
Make a lot of noise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we can put Tim on mute. That's not a problem. I can just keep going here. But he does force the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of situations where it looked like he could either take the quick dump off, whether it be to Crowell or Powell or Lizzie McGuire, Thin Lizzie, he would just take off and run. Like, he's actually quite an adept runner, which really surprised me for someone who looks like he's going to weigh 570 pounds in 2 years. He has a real fat man build.
Jared Lorenzen was quite the rushing quarterback too.
Hey, you get those 1 yard at all times. But Darnold's surprisingly quick on his feet. Mm-hmm. It just, he didn't seem like he was one to check down. And after seeing this Dolphins offense for the last 3 years, it's not like they're running designed routes for their running backs.
Well, I will say, Kenyon Drake saw his usage in the passing game spike significantly last season.
Yeah, and then he played 10 snaps a game.
Sure, but still, he went from, I think it was like 35 receptions to, I think he got up to like 60, 65 receptions. So there are elements of Gase's offense that I could see Le'Veon Bell being utilized in. And look, I'm not stupid enough to think that Le'Veon Bell is comparable to someone like Jay Ajayi or Kenyon Drake. Like, you would think Adam Gase would design an offense around Le'Veon Bell. I don't have that much trust in Adam Gase, offensive genius that he is.
Adam Gase is really good. He's one of the better offensive coaches in football. It's not even really up for debate. Look what he did with the
not up for debate.
Very up for debate.
It actually isn't in a serious sense. If you look at the nothing that the Dolphins had the 3 years he was there, and the amount of juice that he squeezed out of that orange, it is remarkable. The idea that he's going to go to the Jets with significantly better players and an opportunity to show what he's. I mean, look, he led a Dolphins team with Ryan Tannehill to the playoffs, and he took he had a team with Jay Cutler the second year. He still managed to bring 6 or 7 wins out of, and then he did fine again. Like this idea.
Okay, first of all, Wayne Huizenga sold his
look,
soul to the devil
this
20
is
years
just
ago and
not
has to
serious,
win
in my
7
opinion.
games a season, so it doesn't really matter. Also, Adam Gase had one of the highest in NFL history records in one possession games. I think he was like 17-3 or something with Miami in one possession games. That is unsustainable. So we don't really have to talk about that. It doesn't matter. Whatever. I have Le'Veon Bell basically in the exact spot you have him. I mean, I have Johnson higher, but I have him right behind James Conner in my rankings.
Okay, how about this? Maybe Le'Veon Bell isn't good. He's just taken a year off. Maybe he was a product of the Steelers system.
It's possible, but
especially as it pertains to fantasy, where he was playing 95% of the snaps and he was getting close
Sure.
to 100 receptions a year.
He's not going to play. I think if he checks in at like 60-65% of the
Tim's
snaps,
out on his balcony having a cig. I can hear it.
I am not.
I think you take that as a victory if you're someone who drafted Le'Veon Bell to just get that level of volume at the very least. But I do think safe space Sam takes a step forward this season. I do think the Jets, they have a very easy schedule too, and that can't be overlooked.
No, according to Tim, is very tough. The league screwed them in their schedule.
No.
By Warren Sharp, they have the
way
easiest schedule, one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. And I, like Tim, agree that at his age, it could be viewed as a positive that he did not play last season.
Yeah, I mean, less tread on the tires. That's always nice.
Yeah.
Fewer carries. He's not getting beat up as much. But, I mean, let's not also pretend like Le'Veon Bell wasn't a health risk until he wasn't anymore, too. Like, he was banged up his first 3 years in the league.
Sure.
So I just think there's a lot of negatives with him. Like, the Mixon thing, like, obviously the Dalvin Cook, I think could be a league winner.
Oh, yeah.
But
I
he
think
could
Dalvin
also
Cook is the highest ceiling of anyone in this
absolutely
tier.
sink your team as well. Like, Minnesota's offense should be a lot better this season. I mean, just bringing in Kubiak, dude, help with the running backs is a big help for running back ones.
Well, it seems like so many people are focusing on the whole, like, Alvin Kamara is the lead back now and forgetting that they brought in Latavius, where they should be focusing on the fact that Latavius left Minnesota and they didn't replace him with anything.
Oh, they got
really.
CJ Ham. I think that's his name.
He was already there, though.
Yeah, he was already there. They
So-
brought in Addison, too, they drafted Addison as a backup. Or Madison. Or the hell
Oh,
his
yeah.
name is.
Yeah. But, if there's a running back who we could say would project himself or vault himself into that tier of running back who's going to play 80% of the snaps this season, I think Dalvin Cook's got as good a shot as anyone who wasn't there last season. And already, even with Latavius on the roster, if you look at the last couple game logs from Minnesota's season, he was up around 75, 79, 82% of the snaps. So it's conceivable they just have him do that again for the entirety of the season, but the health risk is massive.
It's there. Tim, you hate Minnesota, so I assume you hate Dalvin Cook.
I actually don't hate Minnesota. I just don't like their quarterback, and history has proven me right, as it usually does on these sorts of things.
As we'll find out in the Custy Awards, which will be upcoming at some point, Mr. Kirk Cousins is up there on one of the lists. He might be a Custy winner this year, Kirk Cousins.
He likes to win.
He does like to win, and at one point in time, he was a top 5 quarterback, according to Tim. Now he sucks.
I wonder if I could pinpoint which week that was. It'd be real hard.
If only I were allowed to make mistakes, realize my mistakes, admit those mistakes, and move on. But no, I'm not allowed to do that.
I mean, the only reason that you change your opinion from Kirk Cousins being a top 5 quarterback in the league to a bottom 5 quarterback is because he didn't sign with the Jets.
You don't know that.
You switched your opinion the next day when he signed with Minnesota.
It just happened that it became clear. It's sort of like when the Bullies only wanted to become friends with Bart when he got a pool. It was just a coincidence.
So of these running backs, if you had to put them in order, like we didn't really talk about Chubby Nick. So I got a full Chubb, you got a half Chubb.
Yeah.
Tim is just perma Chubb, but not on this one.
I don't particularly care for the entire offense, and I don't like him that much.
He doesn't. Baker is
He's
bad.
still upset about the.
I like
Bud Light
Beckham a
fridges.
lot. Don't get me wrong.
He also
but
hates Baker Mayfield.
It disrespected the sanctity of the NFL.
I just don't think I think that team is overrated. That's
I know Duke wants out of town. The Duke? Is there a chance that if they get that Hunt just comes back and takes his role?
Maybe, but that's not an insignificant role.
No,
Like,
but we've seen them both coexist fine.
Sure.
And even towards the end of the year, like I don't need Chubb to have 8 targets a game. If he can have 4 targets a game, like just 3 dump offs, that's good enough for me because he's getting all the goal line work.
Yeah. Look, he's he's in a
For the little amount that
situation
they'll be.
where
little-
man, they're going to be good. I don't
What does
know.
good mean? Does good mean 8 wins? I mean, that would be really good for Cleveland.
Well, you have projected the Jets to win 12 games on this show. I will bet you right now that the Browns win more games than the Jets.
I don't see how the Browns win more games unless there's some significant injuries with the Jets.
So you would like to make this
that
bet?
then?
Let's postpone that till we do the actual
Oh, okay. So now you want to have it both ways. You want to say crazy things, but you
AFC.
don't really believe
let's
it, do you?
postpone it for the AFC pick show.
No, I want to make it right now. I want to get in on this. Let's do it right now. But
I know what you're doing, but
okay, you know what I'm doing. It is, you said one team would win 12 games, and what's the most you said Cleveland could win? 6?
No, I think they could win 8 games if everything broke perfectly.
So if everything breaks perfectly, they could win 8 games versus a team you have projected to win 12 games, but you won't take a straight up. I'm not even asking for odds on this. I want straight up. Browns more wins than the Jets. Doesn't that seem pretty cowardly?
2019 is a year I promised myself not to take any impulsive bets, and this is how it starts. I'm going to think it through, and then we'll have it. And you can demonstrate all you want. I don't care. We'll talk about it on that pick show, and not before then am I going to make a bet. Sorry. This is me showing resilience in 2019. This is my year.
Stop being a coward.
After beating you last year and picked so badly, I want to keep that momentum going.
I mean, you did beat me in the pick'ems, the spread pick'em for the first time in 7 years, yet you lost money to me.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
So I still ended up winning for the season against you, so that was nice. Bad year for me in the picks.
Yeah,
Not great. The coin was the best.
as it always
The
is.
coin ended up winning the spread pick'em pool. If you had to rank those string of running backs, like would you add anyone to that pool, Garion? Would you bump anyone up into like a tier by themselves? Again, it's Chubb, Connor, David Johnson, Bell, Mixon, Cook. Like, would you throw Aaron Jones into that mix, Damian Williams into that mix, Melvin Gordon into that mix, Todd Gurley into that mix?
No, I don't think there's really a case to be made for the inclusion of anyone else. Aside from, we already talked about the Melvin Gordon situation. Like, obviously, Gordon would be there.
Gordon,
In a vacuum, he'd be fine.
If
but
Gordon reports to camp and is just fine, and he's playing week
he's number
1,
5 running back.
yeah, he goes to where one spot. He goes to number 10 in these rankings.
Yeah, like I said, the only point I would make right now, I would have Johnson as the number 1 running back in that second tier. The only person who I could even, I guess, muster an argument for would be Damian Williams, but I'm still kind of uncertain with just how he's going to be utilized in that offense. Like he is someone who is going to win leagues or lose leagues. He's just that kind of player, and he has that level of outcome. If you want to trust Andy Reid, they're going to give him a shot, and he might be the guy more so than Chubb, whose early season production is like the linchpin of the 2019 fantasy season. Because if he's really good off the hop and keeps that role, he could finish as like RB2.
I think you guys talked me out of Chubb as the number 5 running back. Too many question marks. I'm gonna end up with fucking David Johnson number 5.
Hey,
I don't want to. You know who I want to have at number 5? Josh Jacobs. I really had to contain myself from ranking him way too highly.
I'm not okay. Sell me on this, because like I'm not down on him. I'm just not.
Here, okay,
Is
I'm not up
Sealy
on him,
really
put it
high?
that way. I don't
I feel
really love him that
like
much.
he seems like a Sealy guy to me.
I'm super high on him.
Okay.
I might be like the highest guy on him. Just
Seems like a ceiling.
He just does seem like a Sealy guy.
which would be good. Jake's an excellent ranker.
He is. That's what I was saying.
It's like I took some Josh Jacobs, put him on a paper, maybe even a 2 paper, and just filled it up with Josh Jacobs and smoked all that shit to myself because I just want to go as high as possible on him. The way that I see it, and it's been so infrequent that John Gruden has had an actual running back 1. And unlike the Seattle situation from last year when they drafted Rashad Penny, where Pete Carroll went out and signed, what was it, Charlie Fry to be his quarterback, then drafted Russell Wilson in like the 6th round. Like, we're playing Russell Wilson now. And last year, we're playing Chris Carson now, despite the fact that we burned this 1st round pick on a running back. Gruden's not going to do that. Gruden has his 1st round running back. So floor-wise, he gets all the goal line carries in 1st and 2nd down.
Yeah.
And is not involved in the receiving game. That is his floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of carries. So even as a rookie, he could approach 250 to 300 rushing attempts. Now,
Yeah, we're already talking about a poor man's Nick Chubb. essentially.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So now, if you insert him into the passing game and he's playing on 3rd down, and he's not a bad receiver by any means, that's just not the way that he was utilized in college. But by all metrics, he's a very good receiver. Now, he's not Jalen Richard good, but now that Jalen Richard has outed himself as an anti-vaxxer, I don't know how long. I don't think that people want to be around Jalen Richard and his kids.
Twitter feed is
as Tim would say, it's very lit. So,
it is Elon Musk hits blunt once.
So you still have Doug the Pug Martin, who's like a disaster. He's like 98 years old and decrepit. He's terrible. Yeah. So there is a situation when we're talking about who plays the most snaps, any running back in football. It could be Josh Jacobs. That's the ceiling.
No, sure.
So I talked about the floor. I talked about the ceiling. Obviously, he's going to come somewhere in between. So
but I'm just going to say, if you
him 60,
feel that way about him,
I got the feels.
But again, if you feel that
I'm
strongly
wrong
about
all
him,
the time, Garion.
Also fair. But if you feel that strongly about him, again, I look at him versus Nick Chubb. That to me almost sounds, again, he has the exact same role as Nick Chubb, the exact same skill set as Nick Chubb, except we know that there's no one walking in week 10 ready to throw a wrench into this offense. Like, if you really feel that way, he's probably a better pick than Nick Chubb.
Well, there's also
there always are random people to walk in and score touchdowns for the Raiders.
And there are Insta-Raiders, that's true.
Insta-Raiders are very much a real thing, but also one guy plays in a really good offense and the other guy plays in a fucking terrible offense.
Yeah. How bad do we think the Raiders are going to be?
It used to be terrible. I think it'll be respectable this season. I expect it to be. They did improve themselves.
They still have Derek Carr as their quarterback. That's not good.
Yeah, but I still Carr was like a borderline MVP a couple seasons ago. Like,
but then he had a massive neck and back surgery.
Do you remember what? Do you actually remember what happened to Derek Carr?
Yeah, I do.
During his MVP run?
Yeah, I do.
Tim, do you remember?
I don't want to talk about it. Let's move on.
People can go watch the 2008 Custy Awards if they want to see what both happened to Derek Carr and Mariota-san.
Sorry, how do you pronounce that last name, Tim? Marcus
Mariota?
Skin crawl.
It's good to get back into football.
Yeah.
We're like 50 minutes in. We're player number 16. This is about part for the. We have to do a part 2 of this later date. People can just go find the rankings up on dkplaybook.com. But
what do you want to do? Do you just want to hop to players we want to talk about? Or?
Yeah. So I'll just list off so after that string of running backs there, Mixon 14, Cook 15, Odell, Tyreek Hill number 17, Antonio Brown, Juju. 20 is Melvin Gordon. Then it's Damian Williams, Josh Jacobs, Todd Gurley, Aaron Jones, Marlon Mack, Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, Mike Evans, Julian Edelman, A.J. Green. And that ends that kind of wide receiver tier that you had talked about, because I have Thielen and Diggs and Cooper on the next tier down with the running back or the tight ends in between with Kittle and Ertz at 31 and 32. So out of those guys, Tim, who's the one that you want to talk about the most?
That I haven't said anything about already, I will pick up Hilton. I think Hilton is going to have an amazing season. I think he could be top 5. I think he could be a top 2-3 receiver in fantasy points by the time it's all said and done. So he's somebody who's like, I have no problem having like in a 14-team league like we play in, having the last pick. I have no issue taking receiver to finish. I actually think there's a little bit of depth in running back, and you can wait on them. I think 0 RB is very smart this year. I probably won't be taking any of those running backs in the first round if I had a first round pick. I would take receiver, and I think Hilton's a prime example of someone I would take in the second round, and I would be delighted to have as a wide receiver.
I agree with you, and I look in theory Pat does too. He's got him as wide receiver 8 if I counted properly.
Yes, I believe so. No, it's 9. 9 because Keenan Allen's right ahead of him.
Tyreek Hill slotted into. Look, I would have Hilton over Allen if we want to make that direct comparison. My thing with Allen is just.
This is also PPR scoring. So the baseline.
No, I agree with that.
The baseline for Keenan Allen.
I don't think Keenan Allen's as good as a PPR player as people make him out to be. I think people forget that he regressed last season.
Standard player, yeah.
He did.
He's not a better standard player. Let me make that point. I am not hopping on that ship.
So I guess the point is between the two. It depends on how you want to play on. If you want the upside, I kind of agree that T.Y. Hilton probably is the better player, but you're also going to have to stomach those like random 2 for 42 weeks.
Sure.
And those don't happen to Keenan Allen. If he has 42 yards, he has 8 catches.
I just think, again, you have to look at how that offense was implemented last season, where he already took a massive step back from 2017 to 2018, talking about Keenan Allen right now. And you've got a situation where Los Angeles. I knew I was going to do it once.
It's year 2 now. No more of that.
I knew I was going to do it once.
Los
3. Angeles.
Oh, yeah. No, for the Chargers, it's year 2.
It's year 3.
Is it really?
I think it's year 3, yeah. I think he's
God.
right. They threw to their tight end so infrequently last season from a positional target perspective. And you know that's going to go up with Hunter Henry. Like, sure, they lose Williams, but Mike Williams is probably
going to be amazing.
I heard that too.
Yeah, I wonder.
I've heard very, very good things about Hunter Henry.
But I do think Hunter Henry is going to be like, look, even if he's not good, he's going to be a vital piece of this offense.
Sure.
And I just don't think you can expect Keenan Allen to go back to who he was.
Excuse me.
I think what we saw last season, a season where he also went from leading the league in red zone targets to being pretty, I don't want to say pedestrian, but like middle of the pack in red zone targets because Mike Williams stepped in. Hunter Henry's not going to help in that regard either. So I think that the template we saw from Allen last season is exactly what we're going to get this season. I don't think there's going to be improvement. So I would take the upside of Hilton, who I just think also has a pretty solid floor. And I'm in love with the Colts offense this season.
So I guess the one thing about the Colts offense as it pertains to T.Y. Hilton, I don't think like Eric Ebron ends up with like 39 touchdowns again.
No.
But
Doyle steps back in.
Ebron's there. They brought in fifth tight end Devin Funchess to do things.
Is a better tight end than receiver, probably.
Oh, well, he's shaped like a tight end.
He was a tight end in college.
So, I mean, you throw Mo Ali Cox on the field, you play your four tight end
I forgot about Mo Ali Cox.
Mo Ali Cox. He'll be good for like 8 touchdowns too. Like, Luck is becoming very Breeze-esque in the way that he just distributes touchdowns around to everyone.
Yeah.
And you bring in Perry Campbell. He comes over from France to steal our American touchdown. They draft him. He's fine.
Sorry, I hadn't heard that one yet.
You don't like Perry? Instead of like, you know how Joe Horn used to find the
I
cell
don't
phone?
usually get the French thing because you usually reserve that for the golf show. There's not too many, aside from Jalen Rashad.
Jalen Rocket Richard.
Yeah, no, that's a concern.
And then Kane ends up coming back too, and people are already kind of like, everything that we thought like, man, they had like Dontrell Inman and Ryan Grant, and these were like the bums they were running at wide receiver too.
Yeah.
Like if they have a viable someone else on the other side of the field to throw to, it just might hurt the overall like ceiling that Hilton can get to. Maybe his efficiency becomes better, and maybe he reaches it anyway. But I just don't know if the volume week to week to week to week may necessarily be there like it kind of was last year.
Sure, but I think one thing to consider too is Los Angeles was notoriously slow in how they operated their offense. We're on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. The Colts were the fastest paced offense in the NFL.
Yeah, but that flipped a lot in the second half of the season when they got better.
Fair.
A lot of it was when they were down by a bunch in the first half of the season.
True, but they weren't
I
a
slow
believe
team.
they were still top 10 in the league.
But they were
ahead by 7 points.
But they were running so many plays
That's fair.
the first 10 weeks of the year. And
That's
then
fair.
all of a sudden when they made their playoff run, they started running. When Marlon Mack came back, it did shift their offense around.
Sure. I still just think I would rather have Hilton than Allen just because maybe it's honestly desensitization, but I'm just kind of bored by the concept of Keenan Allen at this point. I'd rather have the upside of T.Y. Hilton.
It's that bad chin strap beard, isn't it?
It's not great. It's really not great.
You talking about him or you?
Well, it's not really a chin strap.
I suppose that's true.
Although I guess if it doesn't connect, which it doesn't, it is a chin strap. So
There you go. So, Tim, you like T.Y. Hilton more. Would that mean you would draft him like in that Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill range or even higher than that?
No, right there at that range.
Are you in on Antonio Brown? I feel like he could lead the league in targets.
I mean, it's just Antonio Brown, and
Yeah, but he's not good without Ben. I heard that from Ben.
This is a real lazy take, but this is honestly the best I got. Until he doesn't do it, he's Antonio Brown. That's all I really got to say.
Yeah, Tim, you like older players now. He's an older player, so I assume you're in.
Yeah, I think you've got him rated fine. I think 18th, whatever. Maybe a touch higher, maybe a touch lower. I don't know. I think 18th is fine. I think middle of the second round is fair for him.
What player did you want to talk about from this like 20 to 30 range? Is it Gurley? Should we talk about
I was
Gurley?
going to say, I don't really want to, but I guess we have to talk about Gurley.
I had to rank him somewhere. I don't want to draft him.
I'm not going to draft him either.
But I feel like, again, I kind of equate it to if anyone watches the golf shows, like when Jordan Spieth is like $8,700 at a major, you're like,
he could just win.
It's like he's awful, but like he might win.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's just in contention. He's a great pick. And Gurley, if he's going to slip to like the third round, could be a really great pick.
Look, we don't know anything about how that organization is going to handle this. And if we learned anything about McVay prior to Gurley, getting hurt or having this like knee ailment that apparently was dormant and they knew was going to pop up at some point. But he had the simplest sort of like snap share in the NFL to figure out. If you were a starter, you were going to be on the field every snap unless you were a tight end and that was the only rotation they had. Like it was so easy. So much like Pittsburgh, there's an environment that's ripe to have a running back take 90% of the snaps and 95% of the team carries for the season. But we just saw a Super Bowl where Anderson got more carries than he did. And they've been very vocal about the fact that He's got this weird knee thing. They draft a running back in round 3. I think the writing's pretty clearly on the wall that
Split at best.
And they're going to try to save him for the second half of the season.
Does that mean you would draft Darrell Henderson?
I don't know if I would go out of my way to draft him, but he's definitely an asset. Yeah.
Tim, what are you doing with Gurley?
I don't want him. I think the risk is too high. If you're in a position like I am, where I don't tend to take running backs probably in the first 3 rounds at least.
Well, I think that depends on where you pick, though, doesn't it?
Even still, it would have to be tremendous value for me to take a running back in the first 2 rounds.
Well, you said that Christian McCaffrey would be your number 1 player.
Yeah, if I had the first overall pick, sure, I
Yeah.
would take him. If I had the second overall pick, sure. Those top 4 guys are cut above. I get that. But if I'm picking anywhere after the top 4, I'm probably not going to take a running back.
Let's even say, like, in that example where if you have a top 4 pick, you've got one of the 4 best running backs, one of the 4 best players in football. If we do think Gurley's going to be drafted like in this tier, that's back end of the 2nd round, front end of the 3rd round. So it's likely you'll have a shot. If you're someone who has Zeke Elliott on your roster, you're probably going to be forced to think about taking Todd Gurley with your 3rd pick or your 2nd pick. I would rather just have like Mike Evans.
Well, I can talk everyone out of this. Just take Josh Jacobs instead.
That too.
That has actually made this decision very easy for me because that's around.
He'll be there.
He'll be there, and they'll presumably both be there. And I'll be like, I like this guy.
But I just think
like
if I have a running back of that caliber already, which I know is an easy thing to say, I'm just going to take T.Y. Hilton, Mike Evans, and shore up my wide receiving core with a definite, as opposed to taking this massive risk with Gurley. Now, if you're someone who went receiver in the first 2 rounds, yeah, sure, why not?
You swing
Take
for
a
that
shot.
upside. I'd still go
Take
with
a shot.
Jacobs there. So like, if you pick number 1, theoretically, like based on the way that ADPs and like drafts I've done so far have broken down, you could whoever you want of the top
Doesn't
4,
matter,
you can take it number 1. So let's say it's Elliott based on mine. So you get Elliott, and then if we play in a let's say 12-team league, we'll throw that out there. You could have Jacobs as your running back too. Like you said, Mike Evans, T.Y. Hilton, or one of the tight ends if you really wanted to. I think that's probably too high. But yeah, Allen, Hilton, or Evans could be your wide receiver 1. That's pretty good.
That's fantastic. And you would just avoid the amount of risk that is Todd Gurley. But again, there are builds that are conducive to me being a little interested in Gurley, but it would take such a specific set of circumstances to make me want to draft him because I just don't trust what's happening right now.
Well, drafting Gurley right now, and he's not going this low. He's going like middle of the 2nd round.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit more risk there when you throw him into that David Johnson, or even like not necessarily David Johnson, but you throw him into that mix with like
imagine taking Todd Gurley ahead of Dalvin Cook.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? Like
But
that's not something I would do ever.
I wouldn't either, but I think if we look at like actual projections of how this breaks down for the year, Todd Gurley outscores Dalvin Cook 48% of the time, probably.
Okay.
Like it's a lot closer than maybe these rankings have it out. I don't want to draft Todd because I think that if like a lot of this is based on Cook getting hurt. If Cook just has a very average season and plays 16 games, he's still going to be pretty good. If Gurley has an average season and plays 16 games and all of a sudden he's in a split, like he could be really bad.
He could be awful, yeah.
That's the whole thing. Or maybe they shut him down.
Now,
like, oh.
I will say I think this is something we're not really seeing with fantasy rankings because all 3 Rams wide receivers are still like top 25 guys.
It's tough.
It's so that's a whole situation unto itself, but it does seem like people sort of forget how elite the Rams offense was last season because they didn't score points in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And because we spent a summer making fun of teams for trying to hire Sean McVay. I get that's funny, but guess what? They actually have Sean McVay. That's a good thing to have. Like they're gonna be a very, very good offense. So that is a boon. But again, I can't see him being the guy he was last season.
Tim, you love old dudes. AJ Green at 30. Doesn't that seem like decent value?
Great value.
I think completely. I think that is both a fair ranking and the type of receiver I would be targeting there should I need one in around the 30th pick. So that's a spot where, again, you if you had an early pick, you probably would get a chance to take a run at him, and I wouldn't mind it.
All right, 31 to 40. We got Kittle, Ertz, Amari Cooper, Thielen, Diggs, Devonta Freeman, Fournette, James White, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Kenny Galladay at 41, Brendan Cooks at number 42. So all the Rams receivers and Galladay mixed in there. I initially started out like pretty decent on Freeman, and just the more I thought about it, the more I don't like it.
I'm having trouble with that one too.
It's like the Thielen and Diggs thing. Like I downgraded them both. I think they're both independently going to be all right. I just don't know which one's going to be better. Like that's tough.
Yeah. I think it's too simple to just think Devonta is going to become a bell cow. Like it just doesn't seem like that's the way they've ever utilized him.
That 1 year. When
Yeah,
he was
the
like
one
the best
time.
fantasy running back.
But like Ito Smith was
judge.
really ingratiated in that offense last season. Like I don't see a reason why he's just gonna fall out of it.
Yeah.
He loves that joke so much. I will say my favorite ranking you have, and it's one that I thought I was high on James White, and now I have to reconsider that I am too
No
low
one
on
in
James
this room
White.
is higher on James White than I am.
So we all love
people
James
are
White.
out on James White.
I don't
and
get it.
Don't understand
They've
why.
been out on him his whole career, even though he's year after year proving to be the most valuable Patriots fantasy player. And he will be again this year.
Tim's right.
He's
He'll have the
going to be such a massive value. I had to
Like,
double check when I
Where
saw
is he
was,
going in drafts?
by Fantasy Football Calculator, he's like running back 25 or 26.
So like overall, it's like
Around pick 50.
yeah. So I have him at 38. I just think like if you
He's-
wanted to like play Tim's 0 RB strategy or go receiver, or Kelsey receiver,
best round 4
and then you
running back
go
you
and
can
then you probably don't even need to take him in round. Like he's going 54. So the back end of round 4, the beginning of round 5 in PPR formats. Hell, even in standard formats, he's still actually pretty good.
He was
and
a
with
top
the way, and with
25 running back 13 times in standard leagues last season.
And-
the only 4 guys who had more finishes inside the top 25 were the top 4 running backs we're taking as the top 4 picks. James White is so good. I don't understand. And now Gronk's not there.
That's the whole thing. Like with the way that their offense is set up, and we've seen this with Brady over the years.
He trusts the guys he trusts.
Yeah, like if N'Keal Harry comes in and like Brady doesn't like him, like he's not gonna play. Philip Dorsett's gonna play.
Yep.
But James White is going to be on the field, and then they'll line him up at receiver. Like,
And something to think about too.
And maybe I'm gonna maybe piggyback with Tim here a little bit. It's conceivable that maybe the Patriots are not quite as good as maybe even they were last year. Maybe their offense takes a little bit of a step back, or maybe the team as a whole isn't just winning all the time. Like whenever they got up in games, they turned around and handed the ball off to Sony Michel. That's what they did. But let's say that they're not. Let's say they're more competitive this year in a lot of these games. The games were within 1 score. James White's going to be on the field a lot, and he's going to be catching a ton of passes.
I think the thing that gets a little undervalued too, just because he's not going to be someone who ever comes out of this season averaging like double-digit carries per game. He's still going to get 7, 8, 5, 9, like some level of touch work in the running game. And he's running behind an offensive line that back-to-back seasons has led the AFC in adjusted line yards. Like they run the football really well. They've done it for a very long time.
Who do you think gets better touch work, James White or Bob Kraft?
Ew.
Boom. So we're all in on. Do you have any thoughts about Leonard Fournette? I had a guy on the show who wanted to fight Leonard Fournette. It was awesome.
I think in a 0 RB world, 3 guys, because James White is obviously my number 1 target in this thing. We're probably going to disagree on this last one. I'm fine with Fournette. I think he's going to be utilized in that offense. I think they're honest when they say they want to like work him back into where he was a season or 2 ago. I don't think he's good, but I think he's going to get a lot of volume.
I think he's good, but
Derrick Henry is someone I'm also fine with.
okay.
I like Derrick Henry. I like him a lot more than you do.
Yeah, I have Derrick Henry way down.
I think he's a top 15 running back.
If they utilize him like they did the final 4 weeks of last year, he might be the best running back.
I
just don't see that. I think that Deion Lewis is a better pick than Derrick Henry this year.
You're
Take
talking to
Deion
someone
Lewis in
who-
like the 15th round, and you might get equivalent value.
You're talking to someone who last season was shouting from the rooftops that I would take Deion Lewis 1,000 times out of 1,000. He's such a better running back than Derrick Henry. That still might even be the case. But I think going into his free agency season, I think Tennessee knows, and they've said as much so far, that they just want to run the tread off these tires. Like they don't have to worry about the future of what Derrick Henry is for the Tennessee Titans organization. Like I think this is probably his last season with the team. I think they're going to run him into the ground. I think he approaches 20 carries per game. And at that point, look, he's not involved in the passing game, but it's really not all that different.
And that's been my big case against Derrick Henry this entire time. I think that Tennessee's going to be brutal this year. And I think they're going to be down in a lot of games, which means Derrick Henry is not going to be on the field.
I don't know if they're going to be that bad, though. Like, I think they're just ran in the AFC.
They have Mariota-san at quarterback,
Yeah,
or
they
your
have
buddy,
Rand
Tannehill. Maybe he's their number 1 receiver.
Tannehill to
Great
be
at
the
winning
starter
7
about
games.
it.
Look, that's the thing. I just don't think they're going to be bad. I think the defense is pretty good.
I think Jacksonville might be better than Tennessee.
And they already had a pretty good run blocking offensive line, and they went out. And this is another reason to kind of like backtrack on Gurley a little bit. Tennessee went out and signed Roger Saffold, who last season, when Saffold was on the field, Todd Gurley was averaging 5.4 yards per carry. When Saffold was off, that dropped a full yard. Like, he is one of the best run blocking guards in the NFL. I just think they have a very good offensive line. They were a team that already was running the ball more than 50% of the time. Or sorry, that was Seattle, but they were second. They led the AFC in rush rate. They are the team built. There's only like 2 or 3 teams in the NFL built to actually make Derrick Henry a good fantasy piece. It'll probably burn me in the end, but I'm willing to die on the Derrick Henry as a top 15 running back hill.
Yeah, I would just rather be burned by another player than Derrick Henry. I don't want to go down that
Well,
road.
Josh Jacobs says hi.
Josh Jacobs is my guy that I'm going down the tubes with this year. Tim, what about you? What do you feel about Derrick Henry?
I feel exactly the way you do about him.
Oh, no.
I think that everyone on that team, I don't think there's much skill on that team at all. I don't want anything
What
to
about
do with them.
Mariota-san?
Like I said, I think Tannehill's going to be the starter by like week 4 or 5 if he doesn't just win the job outright in camp, which I think is a real live option.
We skipped over the 40 to 50 range here, so I had Rams receiver, pick one. I have Woods the highest. I think I'll end up drafting Kupp because he's going the latest.
Yeah, I think
I
Kupp
like
is the
Cooks.
best
I've
value.
always liked Cooks the best, so I'm sticking with Cooks.
I would have Cooks as the number 1 ranked receiver, but like you, if I'm going to draft one at their current value, I would take Kupp.
So
I think actually Goff is like the number 3 overall quarterback since 2010 at percentage of passes targeted at slot receivers. It's like 24% of his passes go to the slot. He loves throwing there. It's like him, Fitzpatrick, and I think Russell Wilson.
really,
Yeah.
it's because
Russell Wilson might be wrong, but the other 2 are definitely
well,
right.
I mean, when you have Walt Disley on your team and he's playing in the slot, you're good to go. So 41 to 50, I got Kenny Galladay.
Yeah.
Insane person. So Woods, Cup, Galladay at number 41, Brandon Cooks at number 42, Godwin, Ridley, Prison Mike Williams, Robbie Andercuss, Tim, your pal, DJ Moore, Alshon Jeffrey, Tyler Lockett, and Kenyon Drake at number 50. This is like the tier 3 of wide receiver range. Everyone's so big on Chris Godwin, it just feels like he's going to bust. I think he's going to be good, but it just feels like he's going to bust.
Again, this goes back to my philosophy on Tyreek Hill from before. Like, I hate all these wide receivers so much. I hate Tyler Lockett. I hate Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon Jeffrey to me, if there's a candidate on the board going inside the top 100, where if you ask me, Garion, who could be this year's Demaryius Thomas? Like, just big-bodied, slow wide receiver who suddenly just falls off the end of the earth. Alshon Jeffrey is my number 1 candidate.
Why?
I just look at he was fine last season, but it took such a level of efficiency that Alshon Jeffrey has never had before to get
Maybe
even
he
the
should've shut
modest
the right hand at the
numbers he
Super
had
Bowl.
last season. Like, Demaryius Thomas in 2017 only averaged 6.9 yards per target. It was one of the worst marks of any receiver that had 100 targets. That was tied with Alshon Jeffrey. And the only way Jeffrey got better last season was for the first time in his career, he caught more than 56% of his targets and was up at like 73%. There's no possible way that happens again. We're already talking about a Philadelphia team that targets wide receivers less than any other positional group in terms of wide receivers across the board because they target their tight ends so much.
And then they just brought back Deshaun Jackson.
Back to Deshaun Jackson. Still have a lot of guys. Like, I look at where he's going in drafts and what his upside could be. I just don't see a whole lot of upside. I'm not saying he's just suddenly going to be. I think like Demaryius has like 14th round ADP this season just because he's
on the Patriots.
on the Patriots. I don't know if he falls off a cliff to that extent, but I just feel like we could have our perceptions of Alshon Jeffrey drastically altered by this season.
This really feels like a potential really busty range. at
Oh
wide
yeah,
receiver.
there's just
Like,
like even Mike Williams. Like, I understand.
I actually think Mike Williams is going to be very good. And Tim, I hate to admit it,
So do
I
I.
actually think that Robbie Anderson's a pretty good fantasy.
I also
commodity
like
this
Robbie
year.
Anderson, but like
He's a great player.
there's still obvious risk there.
Great
which is what you're
player might
saying.
be a bit much.
Yeah.
You could very well be an all-pro.
But Darnold, like you
All
said,
pro. Do you think that Robbie Anderson? Would you like to make that bet, Tim?
oh,
What sort
I
of
didn't say it's going to happen. I said he could.
okay? Okay. What sort of odds would you need to take on?
I don't know. I have to think about it. This goes back to me refusing to be bullied into things.
yeah,
I'm
but
not
this
trying
is
to bully. I'm
this
just.
is
I like how me asking you things is now bullying you into things. Toughen up, snowflake.
I'm not a snowflake.
I don't know, insane person. Can't take a stance on gender, Tim.
Yeah, gender neutral Tim Andercuss snowflake. Softest man alive. Don't bully me into it. What odds would you like? Don't bully me. You sound like the guy from There Will Be Blood. Stop bullying me, Daniel.
Daniel was bullying him.
You actually
He really was, yeah.
Then he beat him to death. I guess I now spoiled the movie. That's your fault for
Look,
not watching
that's
it.
15 years?
It came out 12 years ago.
12 years, okay.
I'm finished. Do, 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 do. Oh, the best. So, all pro, Robbie Anderson. Give me odds.
No, I'm not. I refuse to.
Ridley?
I like him. Like
Look,
him last year.
the touchdown stuff's going to normalize.
It has to,
Yeah.
right?
I know these guys are risky, but I also kind of like almost all the receivers in this range.
Okay, but maybe that's more my point. Is just like there's obvious upside with Galladay. There's obvious upside with Ridley.
I don't think that
Galladay's not in that class.
I don't think
understand
I
that.
would say Godwin through Lockett is the
Sure.
guy. So Godwin,
But there's upside with Godwin. There's upside with Ridley. There's obvious upside with Williams. There's upside with Anderson. I just get down, and to be fair, you have Jeffrey behind all these guys, which I would also have. But like, I just look at Jeffrey in that tier, and I'm like, I just don't see the upside. I really don't. And Lockett, look, I know it's easy to say normalization is coming. Every statistic in the world would tell you normalization is coming. My thing is just for everyone out there who suddenly thinks Tyler Lockett, because Doug Baldwin's not there, Tyler Lockett's going to have 120 targets this season. Doug Baldwin was missing for several weeks last season.
I played this game last year. It did not work
Why
out.
do you hate every pass catcher on the Seahawks?
I don't.
team?
It's because Russell Wilson loves every pass catcher on the Seahawks. He's just not going to have someone who is suddenly going to have a 25 to 30% target share.
Yeah, Russell
it's
Wilson.
not going to happen.
As it pertains to the passing game, Russell Wilson's a Bernie bro. Just spreading it all
Spreading
around.
the love.
Wait for DraftKings Metcalf to get in there.
It's a socialist offense. It's true.
It's like the old Drew Brees communist offense. Now we have the socialist offense of the Pacific Northwest. And they're going to run so much.
They're going to run so much, and they're not going to run any plays. They're going to run 55 plays per game.
Yeah, like he needs to get so incredibly. I don't even want to say lucky because Lockett is a good player, and it makes sense how he was able to score so many touchdowns based
And look,
on the.
Russell Wilson is one of the best deep ball passers we have. Like,
People forget that.
yeah, like it's not all just luck that. I mean, it's very lucky that I think it was throws over 20 yards. Like he had a perfect quarterback rating to Tyler Lockett. Like that's not going to happen. But it speaks also to the fact that Russell Wilson's quite good. But yeah, if they throw it 25 times per game, you'll be lucky if Tyler Lockett has like 7 targets. That's I think a reasonable expectation. I think he finishes the season with like 85, 90 targets. Best case scenario.
And it's David Moore, right? He's the other guy.
David Moore, yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's talking about Metcalf. Everyone's talking about Lockett. Like David Moore could be the best receiver
Sure.
on this team, fantasy wise.
Definitely.
And that's not good.
That's
to
not
think
great.
about.
No. But
So from 50 and beyond to 100, again, you can find the entire rankings up on DKPlaybook.com. Any other guys we want to talk about from in here? Like I have Mahomes, Luck, Watson, and Rodgers. That's the order I have them in, starting at 56, 57, 58, and 59. Like if any of those guys are available to me at the beginning of the 6th round, I'm probably taking them. I doubt they're going to be there, considering Mahomes is going in like the 2nd round.
yeah, you could.
Watson is probably the one you can get.
Yeah, but even Watson's like a back end 4th.
But I think like when I get down to my next run of quarterbacks, I have Baker Mayfield at 82, and then Jameis at 92, and then Cam. Like that's probably where I'm going to end up. I'm probably going to end up taking, because Baker's going higher than that. I'll probably end up taking Jameis or Cam.
I'm gonna have so much Cam.
Or Josh Allen.
Well, I guess
I'm also very high on Josh
we're
Allen.
in a lot of leagues together, so maybe I won't have as much Cam as I think I'm gonna have.
But I'll take Winston over Cam.
If I come out of drafts with Cam Newton as my starting quarterback in every league, I'm a very happy man. And I know that it irks Tim, which makes me even happier.
Tim hates Cam Newton.
I don't know. Has your tune changed on Cam Newton, Tim? It's been 4 or 5 months. Had time to reflect.
I have long held the same view that as a person, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but as a player, I think he's super. The day that he lied to us all and pretended like he didn't know he was playing in the Super Bowl told me everything I needed to know.
You just said
I just-
as a player and then pointed out something about his personality.
Well, that was him as a player. Off the field, I'm sure he's a really nice guy.
Oh,
but
no,
as a player-
that's not true. All you ever said is that Cam Newton walks around looking for photo ops because he's a giant phony. To quote you, big, fat phony.
Number 2 quarterback in 2017.
His arm hurts.
Well,
I
it's been
actually
cleared
don't
to
mind
throw.
Cam Newton this year. I don't mind Cam Newton this year at all for fantasy. I think he could be ranked a little higher.
What if you play in an awesome points per awesome hats league?
First pick.
Well, then you should just draft me then.
Tim would be DFL. You know, Tim wears a fedora golfing now. He looks like the biggest jabroni on earth. He looks like fucking Robin Hood.
I need to process that for a second.
It's not great. I also
Yeah.
got.
Do you wear your John Lennon glasses when you golf?
I haven't worn them recently. No, I don't know why. I actually find trouble golfing with sunglasses on. I find they become irritating around the backs of my ears, and I usually end up taking them off after a few holes.
I mean, I don't wear a hat while I golf. I'm out there for the tan.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad form, though.
How is that bad form exactly?
You should be wearing something to cover your head while you're on a golf
You
course.
know, melanoma and such.
I like a tan.
Yeah.
What can I say? So rarely am I just outside for 5 straight hours. I gotta soak in all that vitamin D while I can.
I saw you had a caddy. What was that like?
Oh, when I played at Hazeltine?
Yeah.
Fucking amazing.
Really?
It actually does make you better.
Does he like give you tips and stuff? I guess he would have to.
Yeah, like he tells he has the TrackMan, so he tells you exactly like how far away you are at all times.
Oh.
But just like walking the golf course is fun. Walking a golf course if you're carrying a bag or like even a pull cart is not fun, at
Yeah.
least for me. But if you're just like casually strolling around, like, hey, here, take my club, clean it off. Like I never clean my clubs off when I'm playing by
Yeah.
myself. He's cleaning my clubs off, so
pretty cool.
it just makes you a lot better.
I can see that. I just saw it and was like, I've never even considered ever in my life playing with a caddy.
He holds your beer for you. It's great. He
Yeah.
has
That's the big thing you forget when you don't have a cart.
Yeah.
And you get a beer and you're like, this is great. And you're like, I have nowhere to put this.
Well, there's a lot of pull carts that have like the beer slot
I guess.
or the drink
Not-
slot.
I
not
don't
at the
like- I don't
$25
drinking
courses I
when
play at.
golf.
You don't like drinking while you play golf?
No, I don't. I find it doesn't keep me sharp. I'll have a DC or something, but I'm not drinking any beer.
Oh yeah, he's on calling Diet Cokes DCs now, and he's drinking 7 a day. Because it's healthy, according to Tim.
Well, I'm like number 4 of the day now.
Oh my God, a DC? You don't have the time to say Diet Coke?
He's a millennial. What do you want from
That's
him?
true. It's true.
Mr. Millennial.
Not a millennial.
You are a millennial. Josh Allen, very good fantasy quarterback.
I've heard that.
Everyone wants the Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's probably a better upside play because he can actually throw.
Why was this fictitious person from Boston?
I don't know. But Josh Allen is very good. He's going undrafted. Imagine not drafting Josh Allen when you could draft Josh Allen. That's all you need to know.
Imagine your team with Josh Allen, without Josh Allen.
Does he rush for more than 3,000 yards this year?
Oh, how couldn't he?
Exactly. So you
point.
need that guy on your team.
I didn't consider that. Look, I got no problem with Josh Allen being a fringe top 12 quarterback. Like that's where the production was towards the end of last season. The touchdown stuff is a little crazy, but I don't think he's going to change his philosophy of one read and then just run straight.
Run straight or bomb. Those are the two plays the
The
Bills
two
have.
plays, which-
they have decrepit old running backs, Josh Allen who just runs around like a crazy person, and bomb. And then they they brought in the bees
Yeah.
in order for like quick dump downs, but then they bring in John Brown for more bombs.
I was a little disappointed when they brought in John Brown
Because you like Robert Foster.
I did like Robert Foster, but now you can't really. Now it doesn't even really matter.
It's hard to really trust any of the Bills wide receivers, but I don't know. Like, I just don't get why people are so down on Josh Allen. And everyone, like, Tim will tell you. Tim, what do you think the difference between Sam Darnold year 1 and year 2 is? Like the improvement.
I think it will be monumental.
Monumental. What about Baker Mayfield year 1 to year 2?
Can't get worse.
Incremental.
Incremental. And then everyone talks about Josh Allen. It's like, well, Josh Allen is who he
It's
is.
just
There's
Josh
no
Allen.
way he could possibly get better.
That's true.
Imagine
That's true.
if he gets 30% better at passing and completes 53% of his passes.
And like you said,
like that's very valuable based on his arm.
He's free.
He's free.
So he'll come up many times, I'm sure, in DFS conversations and streaming quarterback conversations. One guy that's kind of interesting, just in this 50 to 100 tier, because of one, we got more Eagles running back news, which is great. But
What's the latest on Miles Sanders?
Well, there wasn't really anything on Miles Sanders necessarily. It's just that they re-signed Darren Sproles, which brings their running back total to 11,000.
Oh, 11 billion?
11 billion.
Sproles decided not to shake Tim's hand at the Super Bowl.
Best
Now
decision
his
he ever made.
best decision. He won a Super Bowl. Now his career is extended well into his mid-70s.
Yep. It's great. He's about to become...
And still, when you see him on the field, he's so quick. He just goes, dirt. He's got one move. He takes one side step, dirt, he's gone. And he's always the Eagles' best running back.
But that's the, so is there any scenario, even if he's still on the board at pick 79, I'm just not going to roster an Eagles running back this season.
Like
I think that's my general philosophy.
You would rather take Larry Sanders, R.I.P.?
Yeah.
Not
I'd rather take the fictional character Larry Sanders.
Not the basketball player.
No.
You would still take Miles Sanders over the too nuked basketball player, Larry Sanders?
Yeah, he's just too nuked.
They're very nuked.
I mean, it's the NFL. He can't play if you're too nuked.
Yeah, you got to play for Denver. And even then, they still won't let you play.
Won't let you play.
Yeah, I don't know what, like, the Seahawks backfield, I don't know what to do with. The Niners backfield, I don't know what to do with.
I think the Seahawks is pretty, just with how they're being drafted, I think it's pretty easy to just say, avoid Chris Carson and take your shot with
But it's
Penny.
not like people are overdrafting Chris Carson.
No, but he's still like fringe top 25 in terms of ADP. Like, I just think with that situation in particular, because it's, well, right now it's only two guys. I'm hoping it's only going to be two guys for the foreseeable future. But I think you just take the lower of those two for ADP and cut your losses if it doesn't work out. This situation, again, like they're going to end up having to cut like Corey Clement or Josh Adams
Or Wendell Small.
Like there are so many running backs on this team.
Maybe they'll use them all.
And they will. Doug Peterson loves a running back by committee. He loves it. And we've seen it time and time again. So my blanket approach to Eagles running backs this season is I'm not going to roster one.
What were you going to
For
say?
the
Dave?
Niners, I expect a nice comeback season from Jarek McKinnon. I
Don't-
sort of thought he was
don't
going to
do
do the
it.
last year before he got hurt.
Oh my God.
This year coming, I
You
expect
shouldn't be
Jarek.
allowed to do that
I
to
mean,
someone who's had so much.
Jarek, if you're out there, we're sorry.
Yeah.
This happened to you last year. Tim proclaimed he would be a top 5 running back last year. And what happened? The next day, Tim?
I don't know if it was the next day.
It was
I think
the
Bishop Sankey
next
who was in it.
day.
I think it was Bishop Sankey it happened to the next day.
No, that happened later that night.
You know what? I refuse. Like Mark McGuire, I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the present.
You're here to hit dings.
Socks
That
and
too.
diggers.
I think Jarek will actually be quite good.
I think where he's going, he's a viable pick.
Yeah, especially
Which is why I
PPR.
think,
But I have-
in a zero RB approach, he's somebody I've got on my list of people that I'm looking for.
Did you really like find out what zero RB? Like you saw like a headline
Well,
for it, read an
we're-
article, and now you're all in.
We're about 5 years past when it first was implemented. So this is right around the time Tim should be learning what it is and implementing
But
it.
it's funny that Tim keeps bringing this up because I talked to Radcliffe about this last week. If you hit the description, you can find all these shows. It might be a good season to go zero RB because one of the reasons that zero RB didn't work for the past 2 years is because everyone did zero RB. The whole
true.
point of zero RB is that no one was doing it. So you got to have like elite receivers at the very top. And now everyone has shifted back to taking running backs again, that it's more viable this time around because you can scrape the top of all the tiers of the other positions.
Yeah.
Where in the past 2 years, you couldn't because everyone was doing the exact same thing. Generally, whatever the prevailing theory is on how to draft, just do the opposite of that and you'll be good.
Yeah, no, again, like I think there is a nice cluster of running backs going around pick 50 that you can feel pretty good about, even if they turn out to be your RB1.
Like if Garion Johnson or David Montgomery was your running back one, like you wouldn't feel good about that. But think about what the rest of your team is.
Again, you can survive that. I think if Kenyon Drake is your running back one, it's not great, but you can survive that because your team is so awesome. And then there's the James White factor, which again, if I'm picking my perfect draft and I'm not having one of those 4 running backs off the top, it's some combination of receiver, tight end, James White.
Yeah,
And
like
I'm very happy.
if you had like the 10th pick, you could go like Kelsey,
Odell,
Hill, Brown, Odell, or Juju, whatever one you wanted. So let's say Tim really likes Juju. You could go Kelsey, Juju, Mike Evans, or T.Y.
Yeah.
Hilton. And then you could go potentially Josh Jacobs if he falls to the 4th round. Like,
Yeah.
He's a late 3rd
and
round
then
pick.
go James White.
Yeah. But even then, you could still take, I don't know, Stephen Diggs if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then you have your receivers filled out, your tight end filled out. Then you could go James White, David Montgomery, Darius Geis, and just start picking.
Here's to you,
Yeah.
Darius Geis.
You know, Rip Torn died.
Did he?
He did. It really got brushed over. I kind of saw it pop up like 3 days after it happened.
Oh, that makes sense because Apatow had tweeted out some pictures from Larry Sanders' show.
This is for you, Don, guys. The neighbor's son is a computer physicist, and my son can eat a fucking chicken sandwich. You don't get very many Freddy Got Fingered references, but here we go.
We've made 2 in the last 2 shows.
Number one son. I'm the
Yeah.
number one son, Freddy. The number one son. Where's your LeBaron, Freddy?
People have seen that movie, right?
No, they have not.
Really?
God, no.
Why do you think people have seen Freddy Got
At a
Fingered,
certain
Tim?
age, like people who are around our age, everybody saw that movie.
In
Like,
Canada?
Not
Sure.
even in Canada. What do you think?
I think that movie has a greater.
Are you gonna ask me
cultural
what the box office gross of that
Yeah,
movie is?
what do you think the box office gross for Freddy Got Fingered
I'm
is?
gonna say 4.5 million worldwide.
Tim?
No, I was going to say like 25 million.
That's also not very. If it did $25 million worldwide,
Especially in that era of comedy, that's bad.
worldwide, $16 million.
Okay.
I don't think people have seen Freddy Got Fingered.
No, they have not.
Well, just because they didn't see it at the theaters doesn't mean they didn't see it.
No, that probably means they didn't see it
Yeah.
because when it had like
I don't-
0
I was
on
gonna say,
Rotten
I don't even know
Tomatoes.
I don't even know if I would consider that like a cult comedy.
It's not. It's
It's
a bad.
not. It's just a bad
comedy.
movie.
Just when I was 14, I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And still remember it. All right. Any other guys from in here? Like Lindsay versus Freeman? I'll probably draft. I have Lindsay ranked higher, but like when it
Yeah.
comes down to actually drafting,
Sure.
like,
yeah.
Lindsay's not going this low, so I'm not going to get Lindsay. I have Freeman at 91. That's well above where he's going, so I'll end up with Royce Freeman. If that's how I play out that
Yeah.
Denver backfield.
Another in our narrative, another very viable option in a zero RB theory.
Tim, any guys that you think I'm too low on from down here? Like, am I too low on Tyler Boyd at 66?
No, I think that's about right.
Is the fear just that
Monkey
with AJ
shines.
Green?
It's an experiment in fear. It could just be that the Bengals aren't good.
Yeah, look, that's perfectly
I don't
fine.
know.
I think
Tim,
they
you
can support.
You can't just say the Patriots are going to be bad every year and the Bengals are going to be good every year. That does not work
They
out.
literally
for you.
have the third lowest Super Bowl odds of any team in the NFL right now. Like they're not expected to be good, Tim.
I didn't say they were going to be, but you
They
said
also
they're
don't
gonna-
have a left
They're-
side of the offensive line, which I've heard this. I don't know if it's true. Some would say that's the most important side of the line for the passing game.
No, that's fake news.
Okay.
But Tim, what were you going
I'm
to say?
not worried about it.
But I think like I'd rather have
I'm
Tyler
not-
Boyd than Alshon Jeffrey, but I might be the lowest person on Alshon Jeffrey. you're
Maybe
gonna talk to.
you may have sold me on moving Alshon Jeffrey down a bit, but what do you make of Geis? Do you really think that like AP is going to get serious run here?
Well, the fact that they said they're going to use Geist to keep AP fresh tells me everything I need to know.
He is the AP whisperer.
He is the AP whisperer. We do know that. I don't know. It just seems crazy to me that if Geis was healthy, like you wouldn't be playing Geis.
I think
They
there's a
don't
scenario
plan to, though.
where this starts out as like a running back by committee with Adrian Peterson getting the bulk of the work, but I think very easily that could switch by like week 5, week 6. I think when Geis gets his opportunities, he should probably outplay the 34-year-old Adrian Peterson. I can't remember how old Adrian Peterson is now.
Yeah, man.
He's too old though.
Too old. Can't take his stuff. He's too old.
Can't take his carries. He's too old.
Do we want any Giants that aren't Barkley? Like, do you want Sterling Shepard? Do you want Golden Tate?
I don't mind Evan Ingram.
I guess Ingram.
don't
Ingram's
mind.
fine. Look, I'll say this. I
don't mind Golden Tate.
Of course not.
I don't dislike
I think he's a lovely player.
Shepard this season. But I think the only scenario I'm using Sterling Shepard is injury, maybe in a flex, but as a bye week replacement. That's like my level of trust. In him.
I have him around like Fuller and Landry and Allen Robinson and Boyd, Christian Kirk, Dede, Kiki. I have Deshaun Hamilton up there. I do think Deshaun Hamilton is the best Denver receiver.
Are you worried though about just how well the Colonel seems to be progressing?
Listen, the Colonel can run all of his practice he wants. Let's see him in like is the one thing like I started looking to like what doctors were actually like Twitter doctors.
No. I'm gonna watch the 6-second video
I'm
and
a
make
Twitter
my own
doctor.
opinions.
Yeah, Tim is a Twitter doctor. That is true. But like at the Fantasy Doctors, they do really good breakdowns of this stuff. And just like even to hear them talk, like it's one thing to be doing this in practice and looking good doing it. It's like it shows he's on the right path, but that is not the same as playing in a game. The different type of cuts, people actually hitting when you do this, and the fact that you need to trust your Achilles in this sort of situation. Like it's a really tough beat.
Well, I feel like even if he comes back, though, like Deshaun probably has that slot wide receiver role just pretty well locked
Agreed.
up.
I think a bigger threat right now to Deshaun Hamilton is Noah Fant.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to be blocking.
Sure.
So, but I think that he's the best of the Denver wide receivers. And like, it's not like Flacco's not going.
Also, have you seen Dark Flacco?
No.
He's just real sad and bearded.
He seems like a guy who just sits in his basement and drinks alone.
I just feel like every single quarterback who has been brought in to Denver since Jay Cutler gets like just taken over by the soul of Jay Cutler and becomes just real sad and dark.
You mean reality TV's greatest star, Jay Cutler?
He's so good.
He's awesome. Lamar Miller?
I mean, he just is what he is, right? Like, I think everyone who's out here as like a Donta Foreman stan has to really take a step back and consider the fact that the Texans are never good at running the football, that they're probably not going to want to run the football that much, and that Lamar Miller is just not going to die. He's going to be there. He never gets hurt.
I have Peyton Barber at 85. I think that's his job. Like, he's not good, but I do think that's his job.
Do we think that job has more value this season?
Even
Because it was his job last season too.
And he was fine. He was a guy to have on your team. Like, if you needed a fill-in at running back, you could play him. You get 8 points.
Yeah.
Like, he's not good, but if he's going to get all the volume, he is worth owning.
Yeah. Look, he should be owned. I'm not going to dispute you on that. I'm not excited to own him.
I'd rather own him than Ronald Jones until I hear anything different.
Sure. No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
All right, Tim, anyone from that we haven't talked about here from 50 on, even beyond? I think
I
we're
like
too low on
Tariq Cohen more than you do, apparently.
Ice Cream Cohen.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good, and I like Tate. I think Tate's a lovely player. Yeah, I mean everything else is pretty. Yeah, listen, it's just a bunch of guys, right? There's not a whole lot. I don't see like massive discrepancies.
I'm shocked you weren't like, I have Jamison Crowder at 139th. I'm like, you should be 10th.
I will say,
I like Jamison Crowder this year. I think that's
you
a very fair ranking of him, but he'll probably be on all my teams. I think the guy could be a real breakout player this season.
if we're going to talk about biased slot receivers, like I'm not going to tell you to have him any higher. I would just say that you're the first person I've actually seen rank Albert Wilson in a place where he will be drafted.
I have
like
him
a lot this season.
I have him as
I don't think anybody
the highest.
I think he's
highest
easily the
rated
highest.
Dolphins wide
I
receiver.
think
He's the
that's-
best one,
He's the best one. He was the one who was the most fantasy productive. He was the most efficient last season.
and he's really good.
And again, going back
He
to
throws passes, and they use him out of the backfield.
they're going to give him carries. They're going to use him in a variety of different ways.
You know what I'm not doing? Drafting Devontae Parker again. I'm not
No,
doing it. I don't
you're
care
not.
how great the headlines are.
No, but again,
Here's
I
the
mean,
marquee: Devontae Parker bust.
we joked about the like Ryan Fitzpatrick will start the first 6 games of the season before he loses his job thing because that's what he always does. But like I said before, Fitzpatrick going back to 2010, no one targets the slot more than Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's where Albert Wilson's going to be playing. Like I just think you give a guy with his upside and his elite speed that amount of volume. Let's say it's even just 6 targets a game. Let's say it's 5 targets a game. The odds he breaks one of those for a relatively big play is
The way that I look at him, he's not going to get the same sort of volume as Tyler Lockett, but they're very similar players.
yeah.
That you can get Tyler Lockett potentially and get the same production. Like, let's say Tyler Lockett drops back a bit, the touchdowns come down, he's not quite as good as everyone thinks. And Albert Wilson just kind of produces around where he
Just stays healthy.
normally produces and stays
Yeah.
healthy. Like, they could be the same player.
Exactly.
You're getting one in the undrafted and one guy you have to take in like the 5th round.
And the thing is, like, look, it's format to format. It's obviously very different. And I don't think there's many scenarios, especially early in the season, where you're going to find yourself having to use Albert Wilson. So he's really just bench filler and you hope for upside. But, like, if you play in a best ball format, there is no
We
conceivable
don't
reason.
talk about best ball on the show.
We don't talk best ball?
Best
Okay.
ball is very cowardly.
Fair.
You know what best ball is? So I can draft 500 teams and say I was right about everybody. I drafted them, Garion. I drafted them. I told you.
That's true.
Like that's all best ball was turned into.
I was just
It
gonna-
is actually quite a bit of fun, but like keep it to like 2 leagues.
I
man.
like it. I was just going to say, like, if you're in one of those formats, there's no reason to not take Albert Wilson. He is the most best ball oriented player.
Oh
that has
yeah,
ever
like it's
existed
like
on
how
this
Josh
earth.
Allen's probably like the best ball quarterback.
Exactly.
Because you don't get his bad weeks, you only get his
Yeah,
good weeks.
there's no reason to not take him in that format. And his ADP in those formats is still ridiculously low. So that's all I really wanted to say about him.
Breakout potentially for Corey Davis, Anthony Miller.
I don't want to say I've given up on Corey Davis because it's still pretty early to give up on a guy who was a top 10 pick, but I don't like Marcus Mariota at all. We've been over this so many times.
Is this finally the year?
And I
Who will talk themselves into Marcus Mariota? Tim, will it be you?
No, I can't imagine it'll be me.
He was. It's a lot like the Aaron Rodgers thing from last year too. Like Mariota was hurt all year,
He
as
was.
Aaron Rodgers was.
He was. I don't know. The running elements of the Tennessee offense I can get behind. I almost can't be as high as I am on Derrick Henry and be high on anyone involved in the passing aspects of Tennessee's offense, because the level of efficiency Derrick Henry usually operates at, I need that volume split to go pretty much perfectly.
Okay, so we'll close with this. We'll talk about tight ends. Where is the tight end like cliff that you either draft these guys or you just wait till the very end to draft a tight end? I'd say it's Kelsey, Kittle, and Ertz, clearly. And then I have Howard, Henry, Ingram, and Vance McDonald. And then I think there's a cliff. And then you just wait till the last round to pick someone.
I think I would agree with that.
You wouldn't throw Jared Cook in there, Eric Ebron in there.
I would throw Ebron in there.
You would throw Ebron in there?
Yeah, I'd be okay if Ebron. I would take Ebron, sort
I
of where you
worry
have
about the
109,
Doyle thing.
110.
I just
Yeah,
worry
I
that he
guess.
won't catch 15 touchdowns.
Well, that
Now, what
obviously
if he
that
catches
too.
8? Then he's still worth it, right?
Yes and no, because he's being drafted,
still being
pretty
drafted.
highly is the thing. Like
Yeah.
you're spending a respect, like where you would draft. I mean, if I'm looking at this correctly, where you would have to draft Eric Ebron, you could also draft like Marvin Jones,
Mhm.
and Marvin Jones is probably going to outscore him.
I would say he will.
And like
Hey, Marv.
Yeah, like
Marv,
I like
That's a
Njoku.
pretty good Joe Pesci,
I like
actually.
Hooper, but you can take those
I
guys
like,
later.
but I think those guys are like. I think that Njoku is the big loser in Cleveland, bringing
yeah.
everyone in.
It's tough.
That just he's not going to see those 12 target games
and
unless he's the guy that they leave open the entire time.
And look, the Jared Cook thing, I brought this up.
Just play him on DraftKings. Just play him every week
Yeah.
on DraftKings. He's going to have 4 huge weeks. And like Jared Cook was what, the 4th tight end last year, 5th tight end, something like that.
But
he was the
no one
only
else.
receiver in
There was
Oakland.
No one else. Like, there are only a couple teams that really run true duopolies, and New Orleans is one of those teams. Like, 55% of the target shares go to 2 players, and I don't think those players are necessarily going to go anywhere.
And you know they're going to have like 5 tight ends.
yeah,
Like 3 tight ends on the Saints will catch touchdowns this year, and you might not even know they're on the team.
yeah. So look, I think
Like, oh, Kobe Fleener still exists. Is he even still on the Saints?
Kobe.
Kobe.
I think Jared Cook finishes the year as a top 10 tight end, but it's because of what you said. There's just going to be 3 weeks where he catches 2 touchdowns, 8 passes, and goes off for 90 yards. But there's going to be a whole lot of 3 for 38s because that's just
Or
how the
zeros.
Saints-
Jared Cook, not afraid of a 0.
Not afraid of a 0. That's true.
I actually like Tim's buddy, the Silver Spooner, Chris Herndon the 4th. But he's suspended 4 games. Well, you got so many drunks on your team, Tim.
It's a loaded question, and I'm not answering it.
No, Chris Herndon was loaded.
Was he?
I don't know.
I think so. Just like Tim's buddy, Michael Floyd.
Yeah.
Poor
he was
guy.
smart. He just fell asleep. I was just sleeping.
Yeah, I just had a nap. No big deal.
In the middle of the intersection.
Yeah, so it's some better place than nowhere, Tim.
But even like Jack, like instead of drafting Eric, it's weird to talk about like a tight end platoon that I'm actually kind of into, but just take Jack Doyle with your last pick.
You know what? It's funny because I'm so down on Dolphins in general. I kind of think year 2 for Mike Gesicki.
Gesicki.
Like everyone was real big on him last year, and like, oh yeah, rookie tight ends don't do anything. Maybe year 2 with the new coaching staff, and
Maybe.
we talked about that Albert Wilson might be their best receiver. Like, why not take a flyer on Gesicki? Like people are big on Mark Andrews, but they have 28 tight ends.
Yeah.
They don't throw.
Yeah.
Like that's a tough beat.
Yeah, that doesn't seem, the math doesn't check out there.
No, but people love him. Like Liberace, women loved him. I do like that Darren Waller on Oakland just because there are no options.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think in most leagues, like when you factor in, again, like the Hoopers of the world, the Njokus of the world, I think you can scratch together 12 tight ends who pretty much you can just say, maybe not on a week-to-week basis with like Njoku and Hooper, but like you'd have to find really good streaming spots.
But do you want to take someone like Njoku in, let's say, the 8th round? Or just wait till the last round?
Oh no, I'd rather wait till the last
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's a cliff, and Njoku and Cook and Ebron and Delaney Walker, they're all on the wrong side of the cliff.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're getting them super late, like I'm just not going to have them.
Yeah, like again, if you want to, like I have no problem taking like Jack Doyle with my last pick for free. Chris Herndon's fallen off the board because of the 4-game suspension.
You don't even have to draft him. You can pick him up after
Like,
week 3.
I got a good feeling about the Brontosaurus. I really do.
The Ebrontosaurus.
Yeah, I really like his chances.
You should probably leave the nicknames to me, pal.
I think I'm pretty good at them.
You seem to think a lot of things that just aren't true.
No.
I'm surprised. I mean, I guess it's because he spent so much time on Jamison Crowder at 139 that he kind of glossed over the fact that Adam Humphries is at 140, but that's like the Tim tier.
Yeah.
I'm purposely not talking about him so that people forget about him so that I get him every time.
Okay.
Out on Mariota-san, in on Adam Humphries.
Well, because Humphries is just really, really good.
He just overcomes it all.
Who had a...
He'll be $3,100 on DraftKings week 1, and he'll be a steal. He was $3,300 week after week after week after week.
In a high volume passing offense with the Bucks. With, as I said, a quarterback who, in the context of the last decade,
and I was right. Go ahead and laugh at me again and let me know that I'm right. That's
Ryan Fitz. Here's the thing, though, Tim. For every reason you like Adam Humphries, you should just now like Albert Wilson, because Albert Wilson is new.
I liked Albert Wilson when they signed him last season to that big deal. I thought actually that was good because he was a good player. Still do.
Whose stock has dropped more than the caveman? Me, Cole, hard man.
Yeah, tough beat.
Yeah, probably don't need to be drafting him anymore.
No. Are you still? I know you have Sammy. I think you have Sammy at 73.
Sammy, I dropped him way down.
Yeah, like what?
He'll be fine.
Like wide receiver 3. That's about.
Yeah.
Like, are you happy with your team if he's your wide receiver 3?
No, I mean maybe because depending on where he goes, I had to take because I have 4 running backs already or something like that. But I'm fine with Watkins as a wide receiver 4. Like, I don't ever want to play him, but if I have to.
I just think he'll be sort of Jared Cook-esque.
Yeah.
In 3-4 huge weeks.
Yeah.
And just
if he's not someone you have to start every week and he's like a bye week gamble, at least he has upside.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trust him week to week. And I'd rather have, I guess the one good thing about Jared Cook and Sammy Watkins that they're a part of offenses that you do want to have a piece of. Like, all things being equal, just take the guy in the way better offense that scores all the points. It's generally a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to go about it.
All right, that'll do it. On the Pat Mayo experience. Any other player that we did not bring up?
Breaking out DC number 5.
Yeah, how many DCs is that for you today, Tim?
This is number 5.
Oh my God, man. You got a Jesus Christ from behind the camera.
Buying a case every other day.
Case a day.
No, a case every other day.
That's not great, man.
Remember when Mina first started working for Fantasy? He was like a bigger guy.
Yeah.
That's because he was drinking Diet Coke about a case a day. And then he stopped doing that.
And he lost like 40 pounds.
Lost a ton of weight.
Diet Coke is calorie free.
He's not thinking it through.
He's a doctor, though.
He is a doctor. That's true. He's not one of them health doctors, though. Nah. Garion Thorne. Check him out on Twitter at Garion Thorne and up on DKPlaybook.com. I'd also like to thank for being on the line currently on his 5th Diet Coke of the day, and it's not even 3 o'clock yet, folks. Tim Andergust!
Tim Andergust.
That is not my name.
Heard it was.
Now you heard lies.
You're drinking a Diet Cast?
Don't call it that.
Which flavor of Diet Coke did you get?
Regular. I only drink regular.
Feisty cherry? You seem like a feisty cherry man to me.
You know that I don't.
What is your favorite? Do you like the, is that why you switched over? Like, you want to get the really healthy Diet Coke, Tim. You have to get the acai berry Diet Coke.
Well, you make sure you get one of the ones that has fruit in it.
Exactly.
Because now it's basically a serving of vegetables.
Mm-hmm. Do you count that as a vegetable serving?
I do not.
5 Diet Cokes, a lot of Diet Cokes.
It's a lot of Diet Coke.
Yeah,
How many Coke points do you have?
None. I don't play those games. I just buy it at the store when it's on sale. I stop.
If you're going to, at the very least, if you're going to drink this much Coke, you should reap some sort of reward from
Coke,
it.
and it's good for you.
We have it's not good. What are you talking about? It's good for you. We have a question from the audience. Yes, sir.
You know what else is calorie free? Water.
Yeah, water also calorie free. So is black coffee, which you love to drink.
And I drink that in the morning until about 10 o'clock, and I switch over.
So wait. So now you haven't even started drinking the DCs till 10. You're at a DC per hour rate.
Just about. I can stop myself though.
I don't know.
It's hot and humid, and summer's
It's
awful
hot
and
and
this-
humid,
I want
so
this
you
big
dehydrate yourself
sticky-
with a Diet Coke? Maybe you
It
wouldn't
says
be
right
so...
on the can. It's very refreshing.
Football season is here.
It is.
All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I told you the ways you can get into a draw for 20 DK bucks if you want to check out the rankings because you want to laugh at them some more. They're at dkplaybook.com. Go check those out along with my positional rankings. That'll do it. Pat Mayo, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!